Chapter 1271. See Loop Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation was the Pavilion Master. At this moment, Ning Hongxian was oblivious to the impending danger. He drank his wine calmly, although he was unhappy that City Lord Ning had left the table. However, he didn't think it was a big deal when it came to Qin Hao. The Ning family was the main character of today's auction. Furthermore, the main character was him, Ning Hongxian. Qin Hao was an outsider who didn't come from a famous family. How could he become the center of attention and mobilize everyone? Just because he saved Ning Chao Fan? That was just a show. Therefore, Ning Hongxian needed to tell everyone who had the final say and who Ning Wu regarded as the sky. He was the sky, and Qin Hao couldn't go against the sky. Roar! Roar! On the auction stage, as Marshal Ning royal family made their stance known, Ah He and Ah Huang began to cry out in despair. Within their cages, they stared at the white-haired youth. This youth was so lonely and weak. Placed amongst the heroes of the southern domain, he was like a small blade of grass that would be uprooted if a storm were to strike. However, Qin Hao exuded a tenacious and unyielding spirit. His eyes were resolute. His determination to save Ah He and Huang wouldn't be shaken by any enemy. He didn't even hesitate to sever ties with the powerful Ning family and be humiliated by them. At this moment, tears fell from the eyes of the stubborn ancient beast warriors. This was the first time they experienced true love from a human. They were ashamed when they recalled their attitude towards Qin Hao. Then, to everyone's surprise, Ah He and Ah Huang's huge beasts knelt down and bowed in Qin Hao's direction. The God Race warriors didn't kneel to heaven or earth. They bled, but didn't cry when they were beaten up by the fierce Sun Temple. They only respected the Beast God and the Medicine Valley's Beast Emperor. Now, they were kneeling to Qin Hao, because in their hearts, Qin Hao deserved this bow. Qin Hao was slightly moved. He knew how proud the ancient beasts were to kneel to him. In particular, Ah Huang and Ah He's beastly eyes were glistening with tears. Their eyes seemed to be saying goodbye, and also seemed to be persuading Qin Hao to give up. But would Qin Hao give up? Impossible. Vice Temple Master, did you see that? Qin Hao raised his head, shouting at the blazing Sun Temple's pavilion. The fierce Sun Temple's asked translation. Translation. The ancient beast translation. Translation. Translation is translation. Translation is translation. The Sun Temple's translation. The temple is translation. Translation is his translation is translation temple. Translation is translation. Translation is translation. Translation. Translation, 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 to translation to translation. There's also First Prince Hongxian. As the saying goes, an emperor's mouth is golden. Today, I've learned my lesson. An emperor always kept his promises. It was one thing for Blazing Sun Temple to go back on their word, but the current crown prince of Ningwu Empire, Ning Hongxian, who was about to succeed Great Emperor Ningwu, was also someone who went back on his word. Today, Ning Hongxian broke his promise. Tomorrow, he might break his promise to the world. He wouldn't be able to sit on the throne for long. How dare you? Ning Feiyong scolded. Qin Hao wasn't qualified to interrupt the Ningwu crown prince. Qin Hao ignored Ning Feiyong. He said again, someone gave me a chance to consider my relationship with the Ning family. Now, I'm also giving Lord Hongxian chance. Is your so-called permission for real? Ning Feiyong couldn't help but blush. He did say such words to Qin Hao, but he was the third prince of Ningwu and had a noble status. However, Qin Hao actually dared to return those words to his first imperial brother. This is simply outrageous. There was still no response from Ning Hongxian. Just like the scene when he first entered the auction house, he didn't even give Qin Hao a look or ask a servant to pass a message. Obviously, Ning Hongxian didn't treat Qin Hao fairly from the beginning. Okay, I have nothing to say. I hope the Ning family won't regret it. Qin Hao turned and returned to his seat. Everyone present was stunned. Is he giving in? Facing the fierce Sun Temple and the Ning family, a person was as insignificant as a speck of dust. Moreover, Qin Hao didn't have a true expert behind him. Without an emperor's support, it was a crime. If Yu Qianyang was in Qin Hao's position, or the Li family bought the ancient beast, why don't you go back on your word? Thus, even though he admitted defeat, no one dared to mock Qin Hao. The boldness he displayed only caused others to feel admiration and admiration. In the southern domain, not everyone had the guts to challenge the two top forces. On the contrary, the fierce Sun Temple and the Ning family were shameless. Perhaps in the eyes of the martial artists, the result was already decided. But for Qin Hao, it was just the beginning. He hadn't really counterattacked. He gave Ning Hongxian one last chance, but the other side didn't care. So the counterattack could begin. Haha, what we've seen today has broadened the horizons of this old man and my colleagues in the Elixir Pavilion. The mighty lords and geniuses from all over the southern region have godlike figures, and their elegant demeanors make the Western Liang Elixir Pavilion feel inferior. But we only care about one thing. Honor and righteousness come first. The southern region's sect masters and seniors act differently from our Western Liang sect. So, Dange doesn't need to participate in the auction of the Saint Soul Elixir. We'll take our leave. Suddenly, an aged voice rang out from the loft of the Supreme Pill Pavilion. The tone was filled with disappointment and cold disdain. This time, not only were the martial artists shocked, but the leading elders of the three sovereigns and four sects were also panicking. Everyone knew that although today's auction was held according to the tradition of previous auctions, the real finale was Dange of Western Liang. To be exact, it was Dange's Saint Soul Elixir. Now, according to Dange's words, they were going to leave? Tong. Ning Hongxian stood up. Tong. Xinyuan Wuba stood up. Puff. Li Yaxu, the heir to the Li family, spat out a mouthful of tea and stood up. At this moment, all the seniors of the fierce Sun Temple, Wuxord sect, and Arhut Palace rushed out of their pavilions and strode toward Dange's people. Indeed, before the first wave has subsided, another wave has risen. Everyone is here for the Saint Soul Elixir. The Elixir Pavilion is too unreliable. How can I just leave like that? Could it be that he doesn't like the style of the fierce Sun Temple and Ning Hongxian? As the great figures began to take action, the small martial artists began to discuss amongst themselves. The Pill Pavilion's actions were clearly a last-minute change of heart. It was too sudden, and even Sect Master Tang forgot a hand over the ancient beast as he ran towards the Pill Pavilion. Before the auction started, Tang Xingqian praised the Saint Soul Elixir. He was speaking from the bottom of his heart. In fact, he didn't know about the relationship between Qin Hao and Dange. He was just expressing his personal opinion as an alchemist. He was really impressed by Dange's ability to refine such a miraculous item like the Saint Soul Elixir. He didn't know who created the formula, but he must be an amazing alchemist. However, the only ones who could remain calm were the palace master of the Night Net Palace, Yi Ninghong, and Qin Hao, who was sitting beside Qing Lao. The old demon would definitely tell Yi Ninghong about his relationship with Dange. And Qin Hao was waiting for this moment. Did Ning Hongxian want to cover the sky with one hand? Then let's see how he will break this round. Elder Na Tube, why are you leaving so suddenly? Did the Ning family not treat you well? At this moment, Ning Hongxian couldn't put on the airs of Crown Prince anymore. Like the others, he personally went downstairs, including Blazing Sun Temple's Vice Temple Master Yang Tai, Li family's Li Yaxu, and the others, and Xinyuan Wuba. All of them formed a circle in front of the Dan Pavilion's team. If they had been a step late, the Dan Pavilion's team would have really walked out. Not treated you well? Old man doesn't dare to criticize His Highness Hongxian. Na Tube squinted his eyes half dead. In fact, He didn't even raise his head to look at Ning Hongshuan's face. Since this eldest brother of the Ning family was so awe-inspiring and dared to ignore and disdain the little ancestor of Shiliang, Gnawing Tube would naturally return Qin Hao's anger to Ning Hongxian. Even so, Ning Hongxian wasn't angry at all. In fact, he felt that Dan Ge should be putting on airs. Elder Iron Bite, what do you think? Ning Hongxian looked very embarrassed and couldn't help but look at Iron Bite Chung. Ever since Dan Ji's team came to the Ning Wu Empire, apart from the low-level Emperor Yuan, it had been Na Tube and Iron Bite who had been negotiating with the Ning family. To be honest, Ning Hongxian was a crown prince and a third-level Emperor Yuan powerhouse. Yet he had to accompany 2 trash Yuan monarchs from Western Liang every day. Their cultivation was extremely useless. Moreover, he had to maintain a smile at all times and treat them as equals. Ning Hongxian was very unhappy. However, this was his father's order, and he had to obey. Otherwise, Ning Hongxian didn't even care about the low-level Emperor Yuan with the surname Duan. However, that person with the surname Duan had been invited by his father to the palace as a guest. Therefore, he still had to face Na Tube and Iron Bite. Sigh. Elder Iron Bite sighed and turned his head to the side, as if saying that Ning Hongxian had made a big mistake and that even he couldn't save him. Damn it. Ning Feiong was a little depressed. 2 trash Yuan monarchs. What kind of attitude was this? Elder Na Tube, if the Ning family has wronged you in any way, you can speak frankly. Hongxian will naturally apologize. However, now that the ancient beast auction has just ended, it's your pavilion's turn to show off the big treasures. For today, the Ning family has sent out posters and spread the news to all corners of the Southern Mountain Range. That was why there was such a grand scene of powerhouses gathering. However, you didn't even give a reason and just left. Isn't it a little too? Ning Hongxian wanted to say that they were too untrustworthy and went back on their words. Were they treating the Ning family like monkeys? You have the cheek to ask. A slightly younger voice reprimanded. It was the youngest person in Dan Ji's team. Ning Hongxian looked over and saw that the other party was about 17 or 18 years old. He was slightly skinny, but he faintly emitted a violent aura. What was interesting was that this person had a baby face and was very likable. However, Ning Hongxian was not pleased. How could he speak to him with such an attitude? Who are you? Ning Hongxian asked coldly. He could tolerate Na Tube and Iron Bite in order to decipher the formula of the Saint Soul Elixir. However, that didn't mean that every member of Dan Ge could act presumptuously above him. Deputy Pavilion Leader Dan Ge. Is there a problem? Qi Xiaohua responded coldly as well. She secretly glanced at Qin Hao, and the corners of her mouth curled into a smile. Thump! Ning Hongshuan's heart skipped a beat. Deputy Pavilion Leader? Why didn't he reveal his identity earlier? Such a young Deputy Pavilion Leader. I'm afraid he's a once-in-a-thousand-years genius in alchemy. Dan Ge is really a surprise. Sorry for the disrespect. The dissatisfaction on Ning Hongshuan's face instantly disappeared and was replaced by a smile. I wouldn't dare to call myself a once-in-a-thousand-years genius in alchemy. If we're talking about power, our pavilion leader could be called the #1 genius in all of history. Sayo was said proudly. When he looked at Qin Hao, the smile on his face became even wider. This guy. Qin Hao shook his head. He was afraid that he would have to continue acting. Moreover, he would have to put on a big show that would shake the entire Southern Mountain Range. Chapter 1272. Not only was Ning Hongxian surprised by Qi Xiaohua's identity as the Deputy Pavilion Master of the Elixir Pavilion, but the rest of the people were also surprised. Some of them were doubtful. How could such a young man be the Deputy Pavilion Master of the Elixir Pavilion? Previously, the Ningwu royal family thought that Dan Ji's highest status in the southern region was Duan Zhanfei, who was Emperor Yuan. Now, it seemed that Duan Zhanfei should be Dan Ji's servant. After all, among all the cultivators in the continent, the individual strength of alchemists was indeed not as good as that of array formation masters and inscription masters. This was best reflected in the realm of the martial Dao Yuan Emperor. Among the emperors, most of them were martial emperors. For example, martial emperors with powerful physiques, fire emperors and thunder emperors who were good at elemental incarnation, sword emperors, saber emperors, and so on. Emperor-level cultivators were as common as clouds. Next were array emperors and artifact emperors. The rarest of them all were pill emperors. Alchemists had a special identity. They were often followed by some outstanding people. Firstly, they acted as guards. Secondly, they needed to use the alchemist's abilities to quickly break through their limits and leave their peers far behind. Ning Hongxian guessed that if Duan Zhanfei was Dan Ji's servant, the Pavilion Master's guardian, then the Pavilion Master himself should be an Emperor Realm cultivator. Of course, he must be a top-level Emperor Realm cultivator. He wouldn't be weaker than Master Tang. Xiaohua was most likely the Pavilion Master's successor. That was why he had the title of Deputy Pavilion Master. Ning Hongxian thought it through and didn't say it out loud. As for the others, they had doubts in their hearts. Since the Ning family didn't say anything, they wouldn't say anything either. However, the phrase "number one genius of all ages" made many powerhouses slightly unhappy. The Pill Pavilion was truly arrogant and boastful. Why? Do you doubt our Pavilion Master's ability? Xiaohua looked at the crowd. Everyone's expression was very clear. Obviously, they didn't agree. In the southern region, who dared to call themselves the number one genius of all ages? Even Blazing Sun Temple's sun god, Knight Luo Palace's palace master Yininghong, and even the three emperors who controlled the three sovereigns wouldn't dare to claim this title. I wouldn't dare, Master Tang laughed. There are thousands of martial arts in the world, and each of them has a talented great demon. For example, the Blazing Sun Temple's sun god was known as the southern region's fire god. The Ning clan's essence soul was unique, and Great Emperor Ningwu was known as the living god of scissors. The northern proud emperor Li Yuanqi was so strong that no one in the southern region could match him. Great Emperor Xianyuan of the south, unparalleled gravity. Including the sect master of Wuk Sword Sect and Palace Master Yi. Which one of them isn't a genius in their own field? However, there are naturally some in our alchemy world. For example, Dende, who died in the East Continent 600 years ago, was recognized as the strongest emperor in the continent at that time. Under the Sunset Arrow, no one dared to compete with him. Your Pavilion Master has refined the Saint's Soul Elixir, which is comparable to the Immortal Elixir. I'm afraid his alchemy skills are excellent. No one in the alchemy world can compare to him except for Dende in the East Continent. Even Old Man and Tang can't compare to him. Of course, he deserves to be called a genius. After Master Tang finished speaking, he looked at the people of the three sovereigns and four sects with a smile. He first praised the leaders of the top forces in the southern region. Then he talked about Danji's Pavilion Master. In this way, he didn't show that the southern region was inferior to others, nor did he look down on the western Liang Pavilion Master. Xianyuan Wuba and Li Yaksa both nodded. This time, they admitted it very straightforwardly. In their hearts, their father was definitely worthy of being called a genius. However, Yang Tai's face didn't look too good, because Tang Du had just mentioned a name that had disappeared in the long river of history. That name was now a taboo in the East Continent. Dende of the East Continent. Indeed, Dende of the East Continent was so strong that no one could shake him at that time. Yang Tai naturally also admitted this point. After all, Dende of the East Continent had given a fatal blow to the Scorching Sun Temple, killing the two emperors of their era with a single arrow. If even Dende wasn't worthy of being called a genius, then what were the two emperors of the Scorching Sun Temple? Although he admitted it, Yang Tai still glared at Master Tang. Why did he mention Dende for no reason? He brought up the scars of the Scorching Sun Temple for no reason. However, if Tang Du didn't mention Dende, who could he talk about? Although that person was already dead, Dende's glory still shone on the alchemy world of the divine wilderness continent. He was a god in the hearts of all alchemists. After all, the southern region still didn't have a Dende. The strongest alchemist, Duanmu Qinghui, was only half a step away from becoming a Dende. In this lifetime, he probably wouldn't be able to take the other half step and become a true Dende. To the alchemy world, not having a great emperor was a pain and also a shame. In the distance, Duan Mu, Qing Wei listened quietly. He also held incomparable respect for Dindi of the East Continent. Unfortunately, the heavens were jealous of geniuses. Even Dindi isn't worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as our pavilion master. Sayot was said again, his face full of arrogance. Dindi of the East Continent? He had heard of him before. When the top disciples of the 4 great academies entered the Medicine Valley for the examination, the number 2 person in the cabinet of Qian University, Xinyuan Wu Huang, had spoken of Dindi's deeds before his death. Thinking of Dindi, Sayot felt deep veneration. The other party was a true hero and definitely deserved the title of a peerless talent. However, Qin Hao's Sayot was big brother. The two of them had grown up together, gone through fire and water, and walked side by side through ups and downs. No matter how strong Dindi was, what did it have to do with him? If there had to be a winner between the two of them, Sayot would be Qin Hao. Not for anything else, but Qin Hao was his big brother. He had to protect the person closest to him. In all fairness, Sayot did not think that Qin Hao's ability in alchemy was inferior to Dindi of the East Continent. No matter the situation, as long as there was a problem in alchemy, there was almost nothing that his big brother could not solve. If there was a difference, it would only be in the realm. Once Qin Hao entered the Monarch realm, he would naturally surpass Dindi of the East Continent. Arrogant. Yang Tai snorted. How could the weak pavilion master of the West Liang Pavilion be mentioned in the same breath as Dindi? Master Tang looked at Yang Tai. He was thinking of ways to please Dan Ge. Now that he had the Saint Soul Elixir, he would figure out the formula. But this scorching sun temple was always obsessed with the past. Wasn't it just that Dindi had killed 2 of their ancestors in the sect? Cough, cough. The pavilion master must be a miraculous person. Unfortunately, he cannot come to the southern region. Otherwise, I'll definitely invite Pavilion Master to the Herbal Medicine Hall and chat with him for 5 days and 5 nights. Then, I'll give a public lecture and let the thousands of disciples admire Pavilion Master's elegance. It'll be a great fortune for them. Sect leader Tang stroked his beard and smiled, showing great respect. Give a lecture to the disciples of the Herbal Medicine Hall? Maybe there is a chance, because our Pavilion Master has also come to the southern region. Sayot replied with a playful smile. You all want to see Dan Ge's Pavilion Master? He is sitting down there. Unfortunately, you bunch of mediocre people always want to drive my big brother away. As for humbly asking for advice, I'm afraid it will be a little difficult. What? The Pavilion Master has come to the southern region. Ning Hongxian was shocked this time. Why isn't he with Dan Ge's team? Master Tang said anxiously, his eyes sweeping back and forth in the square. Could be that Dan Ge was sitting down there. I am Liaxu of a Northern Pride Leaf family. I admire your Pavilion Master's alchemy skills. I hope you can introduce me to him. Liaxus said, the Xinyuan family admires alchemists the most. The Southern Pride Gate is always open to your Pavilion Master. Xinyuan Wuba said loudly, very domineering. What sword sect looks forward to the Pavilion Master's visit? If the Pavilion Master comes, the Arhut Hall will have the strongest wine, the best food, and the most beautiful women. A leader of the Arhut Hall, with an extremely strong aura, said. His voice was very rough, and his words were vulgar. However, the most precious things in the Arhut Hall were indeed wine, meat, and women. They would only do this to important guests. When ordinary people came, they would only give their fists a taste. At this moment, many forces sent invitations. Even the first-rate and second-rate forces were scrambling to be the first, hoping that the Pavilion Master Shiliang would come to their sect as a guest. It would be extremely glorious. Brother, when the auction is over, bring a group of people and follow me. Tang Xingchen looked at Changhe Lo seriously. Changhe Lo nodded. The Pavilion Master of Shiliang had come to the southern region. He might be visiting some scenic spots. Although it was very difficult to find him, he had to try. At this moment, Tang Xingchen even started to fantasize about meeting the Pavilion Master of Shiliang. If the Pavilion Master appreciated his talent in alchemy and accepted him as a disciple, Qin Hao turned slightly and saw Tang Xingchen smiling dreamily. He could not help but shake his head. At this moment, Gu Huangshou and Qin Lao were not idle. They began to talk and guess where the pavilion master of Shiliang would appear. They also wanted to see him. Even the elegant scholar was extremely curious about it. A bunch of blind people, gnawing tube said coldly. He did not say anything. He waved his hand and signaled Dan Ji's group to leave. Elder Gnawing Tube, why are you doing this? Ning Hongxian stopped him. Did Dan Gu really dare to leave? Ning Hongxian, you are the crown prince. Don't you understand? As the descendant of the three kings, I am ashamed to be on the same level as you. Li Yaxu said sarcastically. Then, he cupped his hands at Gnawing Tube and all the members of Dan Gu. The Ning family is untrustworthy and runs counter to Dan Ji's faith. The Li family rules the northern Proud Land and is not inferior to the Ning family. We are willing to accept Dan Gu as a member. We will spread the posters and hold the second auction. We are also willing to create a branch for Dan Gu. In terms of ability, the Xianyuan family is stronger than the Li family. Elder Gnawing Tube, why don't you bring your people to our southern Proud Land? Wu Ba welcomes you warmly, ha ha ha. Xianyuan Wu Ba laughed. Wuxord Sect's neighboring Hanyue Peak has been empty for many years. We are willing to establish a good relationship with Dan Gu and set up a branch. The leader of Wuxord Sect said. Fierce Sun Temple is also willing. The Herb Hall is willing to join hands with Dan Gu and create a prosperous alchemy world in the southern region. Our Arhut Palace. Forget it. You might not care about us. A bald man from the Arhut Palace said helplessly. He knew that his sect had no advantage. This, Ning Hongxian was stunned. Now that things had come to this, he knew why Dan Gu wanted to leave. In fact, he had already guessed it. He just did not want to believe it. The other party was doing it for Qin Hao. At this moment, Ning Hongxian finally looked in Qin Hao's direction for the first time. His eyes were still calm and filled with the attitude of a superior. However, his eyebrows gradually furrowed. He was asking in his heart why. Golden Light City belonged to the Ning family. In the future, the entire Ningwu Empire would be ruled by him. Qin Hao was like an ant. He had repeatedly clashed with the Ning family in the auction house. Ning Hongxian did not want to bicker with Qin Hao. He felt that Qin Hao was not qualified. Therefore, he allowed Fierce Sun Temple to do whatever they wanted. He only wanted to prove that no matter how Qin Hao struggled, he could not go against Ning Hongxuan's will. His one word was enough to suppress Qin Hao. But the truth? He was wrong. He could not control Qin Hao. He was as insignificant as a grasshopper. However, it actually managed to shake his willpower and even change his willpower. Why? What did this have to do with Dan Gu? Big brother, Transcendent once had a white-haired teacher from Western Liang. Ning Feiyong whispered in Ning Hongxuan's ear. Ning Hongxian glanced at Dan Ji's team, then looked at Qin Hao and laughed at himself. Is that so? It wasn't that he had sensed something. From what he could tell, Qin Hao and the Pill Pavilion didn't have anything to do with each other. Now that Dan Gu suddenly left, it must be because of Qin Hao. He probably felt that the people of Western Liang were being bullied and could not stand it. After all, the martial artists of the East Continent, Southern Territory, Northern Border, and Western Liang were born with a sense of region. Among them, Western Liang was the weakest. Usually, the weakest place was more united. Therefore, Dan Ji's departure was just to vent his dissatisfaction. They did not stand up for Qin Hao publicly, which meant that there was no relationship between the two sides. Ning Hongxian could analyze the situation. Yang Tai, withdraw the ownership of the ancient beasts from the herbal pill hall and auction them again. You don't have any objections, right? Ning Hongxian looked at the vice temple master of Blazing Sun Temple. His tone did not sound like he was negotiating. Yang Tai was the temple's current representative. Although he was much older than Ning Hongxian was also a great emperor. His cultivation was not weaker than Yang Tai's, and he was also the crown prince. The future great Emperor Ningwu was actually more noble than Yang Tai. Therefore, there was no need to be polite to Yang Tai. Yang Tai's expression was ugly. He certainly saw that Dan Ji's sudden departure was because he was dissatisfied with the Ning family. However, there was no reason to take back something that had already been sold. If so, Blazing Sun Temple would become a laughingstock. They were top force. Moreover, Master Tang had promised to refine pills for them for free for 3 years. Such benefits were so great that they could create a new great emperor for the temple. If they withdrew the ownership of the ancient beasts, not only would the temple's dignity be damaged, but would also be a slap to Tang Du's face. Your Highness Hong Xian, are you joking? Yang Tai did not reply immediately. Master Tang was anxious. In order to get the ancient beasts, his sect had almost become someone's vassal, and he had also lost the glory of being an alchemist. If the ancient beasts were brought back to the table and the auction started again, wouldn't it mean that the temple despised Tang Du? Do you think I'm joking with you? Ning Hongshuan's eyes were cold. He could not handle Qin Hao, and now even Tang Du dared to defy his will? Suddenly, a huge force of great emperor will acted on Tang Du. Tang Du's mind collapsed, and sweat poured out of his forehead. He felt that Ning Hongxian could decide his life and death with a single thought. Sect Master. On the other side, Tang Xingqian and the disciples of Dan Ge saw it. They seemed to be able to feel the pressure Master Tang was under and could not help but feel nervous. How could this be? Chang Helo's heart began to sink. His handsome face was slightly distorted. He secretly looked at Qin Hao, but as soon as he turned his head, he met Qin Hao's gaze. The other party was smiling at him, as if he had expected this to happen. A 4,000-word chapter wishing my book friends a happy new year. I seem to have given my blessing a little late. Chapter 1273. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. I'll send you off. Ning Hongxian and Yang Tai are capricious. What happened today will spread throughout the southern mountain range. They've shot themselves in the foot. They're asking for humiliation. Master Gu sneered. It was inevitable that the ancient beast would be reauctioned. Dan Ji's way of doing things was interesting. He had helped Qin Hao a lot. Elder Qing looked at Tang Do on the other side. Under the pressure of Ning Hongxian, sect leader Tang appeared to be very humble. Why bother? Elder Qing sighed. A Grand Master of Alchemy should have been supported by others and enjoyed glory, yet he ended up in such an ugly state, unable to show his face. The Ning family and the Scorching Sun Temple were not the only ones who suffered today. Tang Du would be too ashamed to show his face. As expected, the ancient beast was auctioned again. This time, Qin Hao shouted out a price of 10,001 earth crystals and won in a humiliating manner. Tang Du didn't dare to compete at all. First of all, he had no money. Second, Yang Tai didn't stand up for him. The herbal medicine hall had no emperor behind it. Ning Hongxian was pressuring Tang Du as the owner. Everyone knew what would happen if Tang Du dared to push his luck. He would be killed by the royal family of Ningwu. Qin Hao walked onto the stage. In the cage, Ahe Huang was covered with cuts and bruises. He couldn't help but turn his head and shout at Yang Tai, "Release the seal." Yu Qianyang stared at him. His red hair swayed slightly. His arrogant eyes were filled with displeasure. How dare he order the deputy of the temple? Was Qin Hao courting death? Yang Tai looked at Qin Hao seriously with his pair of old eyes. He snorted coldly. He wasn't happy at all. Ning Hongxian didn't dare to speak to him in a commanding tone. However, Qin Hao had obtained the ancient beast. It was time to release the seal. At this moment, he stretched out his hand. A force of the great Tao enveloped Ahe and Huang, penetrating the ancient beast's body. Even though Qin Hao was standing at the side, he could feel the powerful emperor's will of fire descending. The hot blood in Ahe and Huang's bodies seemed to be boiled by this emperor's will. It surged crazily, and the strange power flowing in their meridians was forcibly pulled out. It turned into colorful sparks, flying back to Yang Tai and entering his body. Buzz! The blazing Sun Temple's cage on the stage disappeared, and Ahe and Huang finally regained their freedom. "You've suffered," Qin Hao said. It really wasn't easy. He stretched out his right hand, and the ring on his finger lit up. Roar! 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 They didn't transform into human form to criticize the scorching sun temple. If they did, it would bring more trouble to Qin Hao. Now that they were free, they could take their revenge. If the scorching sun temple was provoked, Qin Hao wouldn't be able to walk out of the auction. Count it. Qin Hao had to endure the anger in his heart. He threw the Sumeru pouch with the earth crystals to Li Beitong. The auction was still in progress. Everything had to be done according to the rules. Li Beitong would manage all the money in the auction. After the auction, it would be handed over to the Ning family. Then, the Ning family would distribute it with the warriors who provided the treasures. 10,001. That's enough. Li Beitong nodded at Ning Hongxian after checking with his mind. Ning Hongxian nodded as well. He trusted Li Beitong. Then, he looked at Qin Hao expressionlessly and said, "Are you satisfied? You can leave now." Huh. Qin Hao turned around and walked down the stage. Everyone was stunned. What was this? Was he ignoring the eldest prince of the Ning family? He still wanted to continue the auction? Was he not afraid of making a big deal out of it? You brat. You won't give up until you hit the wall. You'll be in trouble soon. The Scorching Sun Temple, the Spirit Beast Sect, the Tang Du of the Herbal Medicine Hall, and even the Ning family won't let you go. Take care of yourself. At the same time as Qin Hao got off the stage, a voice transmission suddenly drifted into his ears. His footsteps faltered slightly as his will followed the source of the voice. He discovered that the person who spoke was none other than Li Beitong, who was floating in midair on a cloud. At this moment, Li Beitong was smiling kindly. His eyes were looking around the auction house. He seemed to be fine. After all, he was secretly transmitting his voice. On the outside, he was still the appraiser of the Ning family. This voice, it's actually... Qin Hao wanted to ask him why he was so kind to warn him. However, he found that the voice transmission was not the one Li Beitong used to host the auction. It was the one from the Coiling Dragon Peak, who was sitting in a rocking chair and looked like a sickly ghost. Haha, it's really ever-changing. Amazing. Qin Hao laughed secretly. He sat back in his chair and pretended that nothing had happened. He was actually participating in the auction as an appraiser. Mr. Fenghua was an antique and had enjoyed a good reputation in the auction house of the Southern Mountain Range for more than 200 years. Who would have thought that it would be him? Damn it, damn it. Tang Xingqian looked at Qin Hao, who was sitting back in his chair. His eyes were red, and he growled unwillingly. His fingernails dug into his palms. His uncle sold half of his sect to the Scorching Sun Temple. He did not hesitate to refine pills for the temple for 3 years, as if he was a pill slave. Even then, he'd actually lost at Qin Hao's hands. What an enormous humiliation. Brother, it's okay. Chang Hao low patted Tang Xingqian's shoulder helplessly. Although he was trying to persuade him, his eyes were filled with cold, murderous intent. It was his master's order to take down the ancient beast. How could he report his failure? Brother, don't worry. This person will definitely not be able to walk out of the Southern Mountain Range alive. In the end, the ancient beast will still be yours. Tang Xingqian transmitted his voice. His tone was like an oath. The two nodded silently and sat down. If they could not kill him openly, then they would kill him secretly. The auction will continue. Although Master Tang has no chance to get the ancient beast, Deputy Yang Tai has sent a message to Old Man. He said that the agreement between the Scorching Sun Temple and the Herb Hall is still in effect. If Master Tang is willing to enter the temple to refine pills, the temple will equip every venerable level alchemist with the same level of talent to protect them. They also promised to send 10 primitive emperors to the Herb Hall within 3 years to teach martial arts. Li Beitong said loudly. It seemed that the Scorching Sun Temple was still unwilling to miss out on Tang Du. They actually used 10 martial emperors to exchange for 1 royal-level alchemist. The price was huge and full of sincerity. To the Herb Hall, this was definitely an epic expansion. After all, on the surface, they were sending 10 primitive emperors to teach martial arts. In fact, they were still backed by the temple. Who would dare to provoke them? Tang Du thanks Senior Yang Tai for his kindness, but there is no need. Tang Du stood up and responded. He did not have the demeanor of a sect leader from before. He looked very lonely. Competing for the ancient beast was not his true intention. because he could not get off the tiger and could not swallow his anger. His evil heart suddenly rose, and he took an extreme action. The moment he shouted to enter the temple to refine pills, he already regretted it. Now that he had a chance to escape, he had lost enough face. Wasn't it good to be a carefree sect leader? Why did he have to be a pill slave? As for teaching martial arts, he could do it himself. You don't know how to appreciate kindness. Yu Qianyang frowned. His fiery red hair swayed like a bunch of divine fire at any time. Forget it, Yang Tai said. He knew that Tang Du did not mean it. However, if the other party could come, the temple would definitely not treat him badly. Now, it was more important to get Dan Ji's Holy Soul Pill. The Holy Soul Pill was a miraculous pill that could change the fate of a martial artist. They must get it and find someone to crack the pill formula. If the formula was cracked, the grade of the medicinal herbs would be upgraded to become an emperor pill. Then, the half-step Yuan emperor that had been stagnant in the temple for many years would be completely broken. In fact, Yang Tai wanted Tang Du to enter the temple to crack the Holy Soul Pill. There were not many famous alchemists in the southern region, and there were probably even fewer people who had the ability to crack the formula. Tang Du was one. Duanmu Qing Wei was also one. Next, because Ning Hongxian reflected on himself, Dan Ji's people stayed and praised Ning Hongxian for being responsible and a good heir. In fact, Gnawing Tube did not want to leave at all. It was just cooperating with Qin how to save He Huang. That was why it left. Then, it was time to auction the Holy Soul Pill. The process was simple, but it was also not light. Sayogwa ordered that the Holy Soul Pill was priced at 1 million earth crystals. The quantity was limited, and it was first come, first serve. This caused a huge commotion in the auction house that could accommodate 1 million people. The various forces complained incessantly, and some people were filled with righteous indignation and directly left. Of course, only a few people left. After all, this pill was too black-hearted. 1 million for one pill. And this pill was only enough to help a martial artist enter the Saint Realm. In other words, 1 million earth crystals was enough to buy a Saint Realm powerhouse, the weakest mortal sage among the saints. Moreover, it was a 1-star mortal sage. How much was a venerable artifact worth? How much was an emperor artifact and an emperor pill worth? The Cloud Rock Sword was a mid-grade emperor artifact with inscriptions and the spirit of a demonic beast. It was only worth 400,000 earth crystals. Such a sharp blade of a divine soldier could not be compared to a mortal sage pill. Who would be able to accept this? However, the situation did not last long. Some noble whose head had been kicked by a donkey shouted, "I want it!" In an instant, a frenzied scramble erupted. This was the way of selling things. Once someone started, the others would lose their minds and lose their minds. After all, this was a limited edition. It was first come, first serve. There was nothing left if someone else bought it. Thus, the first batch of 10 pills was quickly sold out. Dan Gu obtained 10 million earth crystals. Even Qin Hao could not help but admire him. Black-hearted, how black-hearted! When the Holy Soul Pill first appeared, Western Liang only sold it for 200,000 mortal crystals. Moreover, it was a low-grade mortal crystal. In the southern region, the price suddenly increased by 100 times. It was too terrifying. There are still many rich people in the southern region. Qin Hao slapped his thigh and chuckled. After all, it was Denda's creation. Naturally, the higher the price, the more extraordinary it would be. Qin Hao was still a little proud. Brother Hui, give up at such a price. Beside him, Master Gu looked very uncomfortable. Wrinkles were squeezed out his brows. Qin Hao had already returned the spatial rings to them. In terms of money, he did not touch a single cent. The old demon gave him 3 million. Luo Yuliang gave him 3 million. Including Qin Hao himself, it was more than enough to crush Tang Du. In Qing Lao and Gu Huangshou's pockets, there were still 2 million earth crystals to be auctioned. The key was that the first batch of Holy Soul pills had been sold out. The beginning was just a trial price. The second batch of 10 pills would undoubtedly raise the price greatly. Gu Huangshou didn't know if one pill was worth 1,500,000 or 2 million. He only knew that even as the Lord of Star Refining Tower and the #1 refining grandmaster in Upper Lin City, he couldn't bear Danji's oppression. As for Duanmu Qingwei, he was the great elder of the left faction of the 10,000 Cultivator Alliance. He was in charge of internal affairs and seemed to have a high status. In fact, he spent a lot of money, but the 10,000 Cultivator Alliance did not repay him a single cent. Many times, Gu Huangshou lent money to Duanmu Qingwei to help the disaster victims and improve the lives of the 10,000 Cultivator Alliance's grassroots people. As for Duanmu Qingwei himself, although his alchemy skills were unparalleled in the southern region, who could understand his suffering? The 10,000 Cultivator Alliance did not give him money, nor did they provide him with herbs. But he used his own money to refine pills for the benefit of the people. I originally wanted to bid for one of these divine medicines and carefully study Western Liang's alchemy skills. I wanted to see where I am lacking compared to the Western Liang Pavilion Master. But forget it. Qing Lao also knew that there was no hope for the following competition. He was not discouraged, but smiled happily, not to mention that he couldn't win. Even if he had enough money, he would not invest it. It was too extravagant and wasteful. In the end, Duanmu Qingwei bought the sage pill to improve his alchemy skills. He had selfish motives. However, when he thought of the suffering people of the 10,000 Cultivator Alliance, why do you have to do this? I advise you to live in seclusion long ago. The 10,000 Cultivator Alliance is a broken place. They are clearly dragging you down. Moreover, the people of the right faction bully you all day long. As the #1 alchemist in the southern region and a half-step Yuan Emperor, no matter where you go, you will be supported by everyone. Even if you rely on the Ning family or the Li family, it is still better than staying in the 10,000 Cultivator Alliance. Master Gu was somewhat angry. He was not angry at Qing Lao. In fact, with Duanmu Qinghui's ability, if he wanted to develop, he would be able to leave Gu Huangshou's star refining building in the dust. He would only do better than him. If he established a sect, there would be no Tang Du's herbal medicine hall in the southern region. Gu Huangshou was angry at the 10,000 Cultivator Alliance and the right faction. If he was the first elder of the right faction, he would definitely mobilize the entire 10,000 Cultivator Alliance and take all the money to buy the medicine for Duanmu Qingwei. What was wrong with bidding for a sage soul pill? Duanmu Qingwei was not a slave of the 10,000 Cultivator Alliance. He also had his own ideals. So what if he wanted to be strong? Qing Lao, you want the sage soul pill? Qin Hao heard the quarrel and looked over. Yes, Duanmu Qingwei nodded. He really wanted it. Even one pill was fine. This was his desire, and he did not need to hide it. However, this pill is too expensive. I can't afford it. Half-step Dindy can't afford it. Little friend, you will definitely laugh at me. Qin Hao felt a bit sour in his heart. Looking at Qing Lao's upright face, he thought, no wonder Tang Du couldn't suppress Duanmu Qingwei. In terms of bearing, Duanmu Qingwei had already won. However, Qing Lao, who was more capable and outstanding than Tang Du, who had greater achievements in the future and even had a chance to become a great emperor, couldn't even afford a small sage soul pill. Who could understand this difference? How could Qin Hao not feel sour? I'll give it to you, Qin Hao said. At this moment, Dinda seemed to have seen Duanmu Qinghui's future. This person would definitely break through the Emperor realm and enter the Great Emperor realm. If he really couldn't, he would help him. Duanmu Qingwei was stunned. Then, he cupped his hands and smiled. Thank you, little friend, but you don't need to force yourself. Qin Hao had bought the ancient beast and still had 3 million earth crystals left. He indeed had a chance to snatch one. However, Qing Lao misunderstood Qin Hao's meaning. His so-called gift wasn't buying, because the master of Dango was right in front of Duanmu Qingwei. The sage soul pill that made the southern region go crazy was in Qin Hao's hands. Why would he need to buy it? At least you have a conscience, Gu Huangshou said. He and Qing Lao hadn't stood up for nothing. Even so, warmth flowed in his heart. 9 Heavens Divine Sovereign. Chapter 1274. Since you're giving it away, do you have a share for me? The elegant scholar walked over with a smile. He glanced at the person sitting next to Qin Hao. That person trembled and got up to leave. He must have sensed that the two imperial servants in green were very powerful. Then, the elegant scholar sat down and looked at Qin Hao. There was a strange look in his eyes. He must have guessed that Qin Hao and Dangu had a special relationship. That was why Qin Hao was so confident that he would give it away. However, the elegant scholar could not determine the exact relationship. Of course, you have a share. Qin Hao replied with a smile. The elegant scholar gave people a comfortable feeling. He had an imperial servant following him. His background was not simple. Although he had such a background, he was not as arrogant as Ning Hongxian. On the contrary, he was very humble. After the auction, I need you to lead the way to the ruins of Nanlu and help me get the sword herb. I won't miss anyone's Saint Soul elixir. Qin Hao continued. The elegant scholar shook his head and smiled. It was just a small matter. Arrogant. I said that you won't get anything. Tang Xingqian sat in front and turned around coldly. Bid for the Saint Soul elixir? No way. He knew very well that Qin Hao did not have much money left. Qin Hao raised his eyebrows. How many do you want? I'll pluck some from the ancient beast and give them to you. Tang Xingqian was truly laughable. Previously, he had said that Qin Hao would not be able to bid for a single strand of hair. Who did the music score belong to? Who did the guqin belong to? Who got the beast bell? Qin Hao could withstand the pressure of bidding for the ancient beast. Tang Xingqian dared to talk nonsense. Master Tang did not embarrass himself enough. Was it his turn now? You? Tang Xingqian was so angry that he stopped arguing. He would use his actions to prove that Qin Hao would not get the Saint Soul elixir this time. The younger generation of the southern domain is truly disappointing, Qin Hao said softly. Originally, he thought that the southern region was filled with outstanding heroes and geniuses. Perhaps there were some monsters who were worthy of being his opponent. Yesterday in the Wenhua Garden, Changhe Lo of the Spirit Bee sect really wasn't that great. Today, when he looked at the herbal medicine hall's Tang Xingqian again, he would rather look at Changhe Lo. Qin Hao also didn't feel that Yu Qianyang of Blazing Sun Temple was that strong. There was no need to probe. In terms of playing with fire, Qin Hao is comparable to Yu Qianyang's ancestors. He didn't even need to use the strength of the dragon to suppress him. Younger brother's strength of character is truly admirable. However, there are a few people in the southern region who are worthy of being called geniuses. The scholar smiled and said, the Arhut Palace's young master, Luo Yuliang, specializes in physique cultivation. His physical body is extremely strong, and there are very few people in the same generation who can break through his defense. Yi Luo Palace's palace lord Yi has a personal disciple who has received her teachings. This disciple rarely shows himself and hasn't fought with anyone until now, so it's hard to judge. However, a junior that Palace Lord Yi admires naturally has extraordinary talent. Apart from Luo Yuliang, Palace Lord Ye's personal disciple, there were many monstrous geniuses among the direct descendants of the Li family, Ning family, and Xinyuan family. If one wanted to rank them, it wasn't easy to rank them. The cultivation of the juniors was similar, and they all had their own specialties. Their strengths were very obvious. However, there was one person who vaguely stepped out of the range of this group. It was Wuk Sword Sect's inner disciple, Showuk. It was said that this person's sword Dao was extremely strong. Qin Hao listened to the scholar's introduction and nodded. He had fought with Luo Yuliang before. The other party's physique was strong, and he had copper skin and iron bones. His defense was astonishing. He agreed with this point. Although Luo Yuliang was crushed by Qin Hao back then, martial arts and physical body were also Qin Hao's specialties. The indestructible samsara art that he cultivated was of a higher grade than Luo Yuliang's. Luo Yuliang's loss was justified. If there was someone else who fought with Luo Yuliang, they might not have the upper hand. For example, Tang Xingqian might be crushed by Luo Yuliang. As for Showuk, he was indeed a dangerous person. When Qin Hao saw this person for the first time, he vaguely felt a sense of threat. While they were talking, the second round of bidding for the Holy Soul elixir began. As Master Gu expected, Caiogua raised the price. The price was unbearably high. It increased from 1 million to 3 million, which was 3 times the price. Immediately, the sects below the first-rate forces were excluded. They couldn't afford it all. Those nobles and leaders of small sects could only save 1 million in half of their lives. However, 3 million was too high. At this moment, many people regretted. If they had known this would happen, they would have bid in the first round. It was too late to regret now. However, the sky-high price of 3 million couldn't stop some people from competing for it. Xianyuan Wuba was the first to step forward. He bid 1 million and 2 million earth crystals for 4 holy soul elixirs to show his goodwill to Dange. Since the Xianyuan family had stepped forward, the Li family naturally didn't want to fall behind. Both sides had been competing for generations. Li Yaxu wouldn't lose to Xianyuan Wuba. Similarly, he bid 1 million and 2 million earth crystals to win the 4 holy soul elixirs. Ning Hongxian saw that Xianyuan Wuba and Li Yaxu were clearly trying to rope in Dange. How could he show weakness? After all, the Ning family was the host of the auction. Ning Hongxian also bought 4 holy soul elixirs. The 3 sovereigns alone had a total of 36 million earth crystals. The small sects were dumbfounded. They were indeed the top 3 families in the southern region. Others couldn't compare to them. Next, Wuxord Sect, Scorching Sun Temple, and Herbal Medicine Hall all made their bids. Scorching Sun Temple bought 3. Wuxord Sect bought 2. Master Tang was extremely generous. He also bought 3. In terms of financial resources, the Herbal Medicine Hall had forcefully entered the ranks of the top factions. They could finally hold their heads high. The disciples of the Herbal Medicine Hall felt that their faces were glowing. They could walk with their heads held high. These 8 holy soul elixirs were worth a total of 24 million earth crystals. Including the records of the 3 sovereigns, Dange had won 60 million earth crystals from the southern region in the second round of the auction. Qin Hao was shocked. The southern region was rich. How many generations of hard work and how many sects in the southern region had participated in this? Only then could they gather 60 million earth crystals. On the surface, the 3 sovereigns and 4 sects were the ones paying. However, they had countless small sects under their jurisdiction. Yes, I think it's very necessary for Dange to open a branch in the southern region. Qin Hao smiled and nodded. He also noticed that the Arhut Palace and Nightnet Palace didn't participate in the bidding process. Nightnet Palace naturally didn't say anything. They were now family. The old demon wouldn't let Ning Hong spend this money in vain. As for why the Arhut Palace didn't participate, it wasn't hard to guess that they definitely didn't have the money. After all, Luo Yuliang's money had already been given to Qin Hao. In fact, this was exactly the case. In the Arhut Palace, the bald leader with a particularly majestic figure was fiercely reprimanding Luo Yuliang. In any case, they were top faction. They couldn't even compare to the Tang Du. He was considering whether to find someone to rob. Since he had come, it would be embarrassing to return empty-handed. Who should he rob? He was from a Ning family of Golden Light City. He couldn't touch the Ning family. Xianyuan Wuba was a little strong. He might not be able to beat him. The Li family and Scorching Sun Temple couldn't either. Well, it seemed that robbing the Tang Du was the best choice. The bald leader also licked his lips and looked in the direction of the Herbal Medicine Hall. His shining eyes fell on Master Tang, as if he was looking at a peerless beauty. Ha ha ha! Tang Xingchen laughed. He stood up and turned around. He pointed at Qin Hao and boasted loudly. How about it? You don't feel good in your heart, right? You watched as my uncle got 3 Saint Soul elixirs, and you didn't have the guts to participate. You must be envious of us. Idiot! Qin Hao glanced at Tang Xingchen indifferently. You bought my elixirs. Why would I be envious of you? You must have a hole in your brain. You're still stubborn. I know you're not convinced, but so what? Tang Xingchen put his hands behind his back. His nose was almost on his forehead. Qing Lao patted Qin Hao's shoulder and said kindly, Little friend, don't bother with this person. Actually, the Saint Soul elixirs aren't that important to me. It's fate to get them. If you don't get them, you don't have to worry about it. You know what others can do. So can I. He slowly stood up. At this time, The auction ceremony was coming to an end. All the major forces were leaving. Duanmu Qinghui should leave while there were still many people. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to leave later. Qing Lao, stay. I said I'll give you the Saint's Soul elixirs. I'm not joking. Qin Hao stopped him. All right, kid. Face isn't important. You don't have to be so polite with us. Come visit the Star Refining Tower when you're free. Master Gu said. He really had to leave, but Qin Hao was blocking the way. He was really ignorant. Qing Lao, wait for a moment. The person delivering the elixirs will be here soon. Qin Hao wasn't joking. Someone is delivering the elixirs? Qing Lao and Master Gu looked at each other. How is that possible? Kid, if you want to lie, you should be more realistic. Someone is delivering the Saint Soul elixirs to you? The Ning family or the Li family? Could it be Senior Xianyuan Wuba? Ha ha ha. Tang Xingqian raised his head and laughed. The 5 tyrants of Xianyuan? It was more likely that he would pluck Duanmu Qinghui's head. Keep your eyes open. Just wait and see, Qin Hao said coldly. At this time, groups of people with powerful auras walked over from the front. They were all elites of the 3 sovereigns and 4 sects. Danji's group was sandwiched in the middle, like stars surrounding the moon. For elixirs are really too little. Elder Niao Tong, why are you hiding them? Just take out as many as you have. My Xianyuan family will take them all. Why don't you find the pavilion master and consider building a branch in Nanao? You can refine elixirs while we take them. How about that? The 5 tyrants of Xianyuan said boldly, trying to win Niao Tong over. What's so good about Nanao? It's smoky and stinky. Even the air in Nanao is sweet. It's suitable for the growth of herbs and the cultivation of alchemists. The pavilion master will like Nanao. Li Yaxu looked at Xiaogua. Old man is very interested in the pavilion master's achievements. Master Tang also said, secretly holding onto the 2 Saint Soul elixirs. These were his life. Brother Wuba, Brother Yaxu, Dan Ge came to the southern region and chose Ning Wu for the first time. You're trying to win him over in front of me. That's too much. Ning Hongxian was very unhappy. Even the old man Tang Du was becoming more and more unscrupulous. However, his unhappiness was ignored. Xianyuan Wuba and Li Yaxu didn't need to show him any respect. After that, the group continued to talk and show goodwill to Dan Ge. Niao Tong and Ironbite walked and nodded with smiles on their faces. In fact, they didn't care about what the others said. They were happy because they made a lot of money on this trip. They sold 30 elixirs for 60 million earth crystals. They couldn't imagine how much they would earn. And this money went directly to them. They didn't need to share it with the Ning family. The Ning family did this to show their sincerity. They were afraid that Dan Ge would be abducted by the North Ao and South Ao. As they walked, the group arrived at Qin Hao's position. At this moment, Qin Hao, Duanmu Qinghui, and Master Gu stood there. They couldn't help but look at each other. Ning Hongxian stopped in his tracks. Qin Hao hadn't left yet. When Xianyuan Wuba looked at Qin Lao, his eyes became extremely sharp. Did old man Duanmu have a death wish? He dared to stand in front of him so openly. In the crowd, Li Yaqi's gaze also fell on Qin Hao. His expression was very complicated. He didn't want Qin Hao to die. More accurately, he wanted Qin Hao to die in his hands. However, Qin Hao had offended the Herbal Medicine Hall, the Spirit Beast Sect, and the Scorching Sun Temple. He had even broken off relations with the Ning family. Ning Hongxian probably wouldn't let him go. Basically, Qin Hao was dead for sure. I hope you won't do the same stupid thing in your next life. Li Yaqi sighed. He couldn't kill Qin Hao with his own hands. He had regrets in his life. Tang Xingqian was overjoyed. He stepped forward and bowed. His body was very low, almost as if he was lying on the ground. Greetings, great uncle, seniors. Your Highness Wuba, Highness Yasu, Highness Hongxian, Junior Tang Xingqian greets all the seniors. Master Tang, what's the matter with your nephew? Seeing Tang Xingqian blocking the way, Ning Hongxian ignored him. Instead, he looked at Tang Du. Only Tang Du was worthy of him asking questions. Xingqian, don't be rude. Get out of the way. Master Tang scolded in a low voice. He was a little nervous. Although Tang Xingqian was his nephew, The status of all the people present was higher than Tang Du. It wouldn't take them much effort to kill him. They could kill Tang Xingchen with just a look. How dare he block the way of so many big shots? Great uncle, I didn't mean to offend you. It's just that a crazy guy just said that someone will give him the Holy Soul Elixir. However, the current owners of the Holy Soul Elixir are all seniors present. I'm just curious which senior will give him the elixir. As Tang Xingchen spoke, he pointed at Qin Hao's direction uneasily. He knew that blocking the way of the big shots would cause dissatisfaction among the seniors. Although it was impossible to kill him, even his uncle couldn't stop them from teaching him a lesson. However, Tang Xingchen still did it. He risked his cultivation to stand out and pushed Qin Hao to the edge of the storm. He wanted to see who would give him the elixir. Tang Xingchen had indeed achieved his goal. In the next second, as expected, the people of the 3 emperors and 4 sects all looked at Qin Hao. Their eyes were extremely sharp. How was your Valentine's Day yesterday? 23. Education 123 Literature. Chapter 1275. He's the pavilion master sect. Master Tang's complexion was the ugliest. Before he had stepped into the auction house, he was still a highly respected alchemy grandmaster of the Southern Territory. However, after several rounds of bidding, he had inexplicably stirred up a foul odor, and his reputation was in shambles. This white-haired martial artist was very strange. Seeing Qin Hao, Tang Do felt uncomfortable. Recently, he felt that it was better not to go out during the day. The people of Blazing Sun Holy Temple and Ninghong Xian would not give Qin Hao a good face. As for Xinyuan Wuba, the Xinyuan family and Qin Hao had yet to settle their old scores, and now there was a new enmity between them. Not to mention Xinyuan Wuji, just a matter of Xiao Han's matter made them mortal enemies. How could Xinyuan Wuba give him the Saint's Soul Pellet? White-haired kid, no matter what you're scheming, apologize to me or give me a gift. Old man will not fall for your trick again. This Saint's Soul Pellet will not be given to you. Master Tang was the first to speak. His hands tightened as he was afraid that the Saint's Soul Pellet in his palm would fly away. Qin Hao looked at Tang Du and said, Senior Tang, can you come out and speak? I didn't ask you to give it to me. Why are you taking the initiative? The experts of Blazing Sun Holy Temple, Ning Hongxian, Ning Feiyang, and the others all looked at Tang Du and frowned. Master Tang indeed had a bad habit of sticking his head out. He had to change it. No matter who gives it to you, I will not give it to you. Master Tang said fiercely. No matter what others thought, he only wanted to express his personal attitude. His attitude was firm. As he finished speaking, a few snickers came from somewhere. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Tang Du's face turned red when he heard it. You should be enough, Ning Hongxian said, staring at Qin Hao. Qin Hao's facial features were not particularly outstanding. At first glance, he was not a peerless handsome man. Of course, his handsome brows made him look tough and definitely not ugly. Qin Hao, in particular, exuded an introverted temperament. He was cold and proud, as if he was born with pride and had nothing to do with it. He was very different from the rest. Ordinary martial artists and commoners were easily influenced and attracted by this special aura, making people feel reverence. However, Ning Hongxian loathed Qin Hao's temperament, which made him feel as if he was facing an emperor. The grand auction ceremony is held once every 5 years in the martial Ning Empire. Powerhouses from all over the world gather, and the Ning family is the host, enjoying supreme honor. This has always been the case in the past, but your appearance has forcefully broken this year's auction and stirred up a foul atmosphere. I admit that this is a good way to attract people's attention. Today, all the sect leaders and sect leaders know you, especially sect leader Tang. I'm afraid that you'll be engraved in his heart. He won't forget you even after 30 years. However, in my opinion, it's just a cheap trick. You're just trying to play to the gallery, Ning Hongxian said coldly. He wanted to make a name for himself by using the Ning family's home court. He was afraid that this was Qin Hao's goal. You made a scene. Since you saved Transcendent's life, I won't bicker with you. You should know your place. Don't think that you're the savior of the entire Ning family just because you saved a branch disciple of the Ning family. Before you leave, you want to ask for another Saint Soul elixir from the Ning family? You don't deserve it. After Ning Hongxian finished speaking, he turned around. Just like Master Tang, he felt uncomfortable when he saw Qin Hao. The difference was that in Ning Hongshuan's eyes, Qin Hao was a clown. Out of sight, out of mind. Since Master Tang and Ning Hongxian had made their stand, Scorching Sun Temple and Wuk Sword Sect would naturally not give Qin Hao the elixir for no reason. Arhut Palace and Knight Luo Palace did not get it. Where did Qin Hao's so-called elixir come from? Someone made irresponsible remarks, and I foolishly believed him. In the end, he just made a fool of himself. It's my fault for being foolish. Tang Xingchen slapped his forehead, shook his head, and sighed. Secretly, he sneered. It felt so good to push someone into the teeth of the storm and make them lose face. At this moment, many forces stayed behind to watch. Many people did not leave. Some people admired Qin Hao. It took courage to stand against the 3 sovereigns and 4 sects, not to mention that Qin Hao was just a junior. Some people sympathized with Qin Hao. As the savior of the Ning family, it was sad that Qin Hao did not receive the respect that he deserved. However, more people thought that Qin Hao was arrogant and greedy. Since he had broken ties with the Ning family, he still wanted to ask for the elixir. How thick-skinned was he? 1 elixir costs 3 million earth crystals. Do you think it's as easy as staying in the Wenhua Park for 1 night? Chang Lo glanced at Qin Hao. When he left the sect master gave him 5 million earth crystals. At that time, he felt that he could buy the entire world. However, when he entered the auction, he found out that he could not even buy a single hair. Who did not want the Holy Soul Elixir? Chang Lo also wanted it. He also wanted the soul-shaking song, the Guqin, and the Beast Bell. He also wanted the Ancient Beast. He wanted too much. Qin Hao stood there quietly and did not speak. Ask the Ning family for the Holy Soul Elixir? He had never thought of this. Of course, he could now understand that the tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. He was indeed a bit ostentatious and conspicuous. However, this was not what Qin Hao wanted. He only wanted to quietly take away Xiao Han and Ahe Huang. It was so simple, yet so difficult. Qin Hao did not move, but Duanmu Qingwei looked extremely ugly. It was as if even he was trying to curry favor with the Ning family. Master Gu could not bear it anymore. He was about to say, "We don't want the elixir. Let's go." However, a figure stepped out from the group of the 3 sovereigns and 4 sects. Then, a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth. These solemn-faced Dango members, dressed in robes, followed in Xiaogua's footsteps like devout believers. They gathered together and lined up respectfully in front of Qin Hao. "Pavilion Master." Xiaogua bowed. "Pavilion Master." Nibbling Tube and Ironbite bowed. "Greetings, Pavilion Master." Whoosh. More than 30 Dango alchemists in robes shouted excitedly. They had waited for this moment for too long. The scene was silent. Everyone was dumbstruck and stood there stupidly. However, a huge wave exploded in their hearts. What did they see? The members of Dango saluted the white-haired youth at the same time and called him Pavilion Master. That person was actually the dominator of Dango. How could it be? At this time, the expressions of the leaders of the various forces were particularly interesting. Tang Du's mouth opened wider and wider. A stone could be stuffed in. The elders of Scorching Sun Temple and Wuk Sword Sect were full of surprise. Luo Yuliang's soul seemed to have left his body. Even Li Yaxu, the crown prince of Beio, could not help but cry out. The most surprised people were Ning Hongxian and Ning Feiyang. They were completely dumbfounded and did not know what to do. As for Xinyuan Wuba, his face darkened and blue veins appeared on his fists. He did not know because Xinyuan Wuji did not mention it to him. During the Monarch martial competition, Qin Hao had won the championship. Facing the pressure of the northern border Saint sects, as well as the northern Yin and northern Qi empires, a bloody battle had almost broken out. At that moment, the heroes of Western Liang had united and stood behind Qin Hao, suppressing the situation for him. Moreover, they had made a heavenly agreement with Xiao Yi. Only then did the forces of the northern border feel fear, and retreat. Among the supporters, there was indeed a pill pavilion. But at that time, Dan Ji's master was a woman, not Qin Hao. Xin Yuan Wuji knew that. Not long after, Qin Hao became the pavilion master and took over the power from the emperor-level alchemists. Of course, this day would happen sooner or later. Xin Yuan Wuji was not surprised, but he did not expect it to come so soon. As for why he did not mention the relationship between Qin Hao and Dan Gu, it was probably because of his state of mind. Now, Xin Yuan Wuji was no longer the peerless genius who suppressed Daliao's Prince Duan with one move. Now, he was just a crippled and lonely person, a loser. None of this mattered to him. Qin Hao and Xin Yuan Wuing would have a fierce conflict sooner or later. Even if Xin Yuan Wuji mentioned the relationship between Qin Hao and Dan Gu before the auction, it would only bring forward the conflict. The final result would be the same. Why should he say more? Everyone says that I'm disheartened and disheartened. However, who really understands me? It's not shameful to admit that others are excellent. Zhou Wudao's talent is worthy of my bow. Qin Hao is a dragon or a worm. Today, he will still open the eyes of the southern region. As for the final result, it has nothing to do with me. Xin Yuan Wuji secretly looked at the white-haired figure. In the past, that figure did appear in his nightmares for a period of time, and he could not get rid of it. But now he had gotten over it. He was inferior to others, so he was inferior to others. At this moment, he was just a spectator, waiting to see how the Emperor Wu, who had defeated hundreds of thousands of competitors, would solve this adversity today. Xin Yuan Wuji was waiting to see. 9 Heavens Immortal Emperor. Chapter 1276. The contrast was too strong. Pavilion Master, it's actually him. How can this be? Sect Leader Tang's face scrunched up. No one beside him answered his question. In fact, everyone wanted to ask why. Yang Tai, the Vice Temple Master, was in a dilemma. He had said that he hoped Dan Ji's master would visit him. How should he deal with the current situation? The Flawless Sword sect didn't think much of it. They were just shocked. However, the people of the Flawless Sword sect and Qin Hao had never had any conflict. If Qin Hao was willing to visit the Sword sect, they would definitely be willing. Ning Hongxian and Ning Feiong were different. They were not only at a loss, but also a little panicked. Ever since Dan Gu entered the southern region and first sought out the Ning family, Ning Hongxian had always been the one to receive everyone. He spent all his time around Nibbling Tube and Iron Bite. He valued Dan Gu very much. If he handled their relationship well, he would have a chance to ascend the throne and take over the throne. After all, his father also wanted to see how capable he was. But now, he was looking forward to it day and night. He was thinking of stabilizing the Elixir Pavilion in Ningwu country and building a branch hall. But what did he do? He chased Dan Ji's Pavilion Master out the door. How should he deal with this? Especially Ning Feiong. He had previously said that Qin Hao was a greedy person who wanted to curry favor with the Ning family. Who was greedy now? Who should he curry favor with? So that's how it is, huh? In an inconspicuous corner, Ning Chaofan, who was not in a good mood, had a strange look in his eyes. His gaze passed through the crowd and landed on Qin Hao. Ever since he met Qin Hao, he had always thought that his teacher was an amazing talent. He was not wrong. Qin Hao was indeed extraordinary. His true identity was actually the Pavilion Master of the Pill Pavilion, the otherworldly expert that the first prince of the martial Ning Empire yearned for day and night and was eager to meet. If Qin Hao had revealed his identity a day earlier, then the place he stayed yesterday would not have been the Wenhua Garden in West City. Instead, he would have stayed at the Ning family's Jinghua Garden. Today, he wasn't sitting in the purple area surrounded by the first-rate forces. Instead, he was sitting in one of the 8 special pavilions. It turned out that Qin Hao was already very low-key when he did things. He didn't want to show off at all. He didn't want to show off his superiority. Previously, Ning Chaofan had thought that if Qin Hao accepted him, he would be incomparably glorious in the future. But at this moment, Ning Chaofan realized that he was the one who should be proud. He was actually Dan Ji's Pavilion Master's disciple. This was such a glorious title. If today's incident hadn't happened, His father would have been proud of this title. Even the empire's great Emperor Ningwu would have praised Ning Chaofan for doing a good job. Unfortunately, the benevolent and righteous eldest brother had forcibly taken this title away from Ning Chaofan and made him lose his identity as Danji's disciple. He was truly benevolent and righteous. He was truly courteous. In the past, Ning Chaofan saw Ning Hongxian as the new god of the Ning family. He was the Ning family's faith, and he was always right. Now, he looked at his eldest brother in the crowd. He was at a loss, and there was a faint panic on his face. Suddenly, Ning Chaofan felt like he was a clown. Jingshan, what do you think? In the direction of the pavilion in the distance, the Ning family's third old ancestor quietly watched with his hands behind his back. He asked a mighty general in armor beside him. Third uncle, our Golden Light City's lineage didn't let down that mister. He is young, even younger than Chaofan. However, when Chaofan returned and recognized him as his master, did you see me dissatisfied? But the Ning family still let him down. Ning Jingshan sighed. Many accidents happened today that could have been avoided. Ning Jingshan wanted to take action several times, but he was powerless under the pressure of the crown prince. I'm not asking about Chaofan's master, but you. How is Ning Hongxian? The third old ancestor continued. This. City Lord Ning was startled and his eyes became a little blank. Third uncle's question was very sharp and even somewhat rebellious. He was questioning the crown prince. But then, Ning Jingshan's blank expression suddenly became sharp, and he said with a calm tone, compared to the current great emperor, he is far from being able to bear such a great responsibility. If this sentence were to reach the ears of the current great emperor Ningwu, it would be very serious. The Golden Light City's lineage had a lot of weight in the Ning family system. Otherwise, Ning Jingshan's lineage wouldn't be able to manage the #1 trading city in the southern region. According to his answer just now, there would be two results. First, Ning Hongxian would be removed from his position as the crown prince and banished to the Cold Palace. Second, Ning Chaofan's family would be annihilated. How could they be allowed to stay after daring to question the crown prince? But City Lord Ning was speaking from the bottom of his heart. In terms of talent, Ning Hongxian was indeed a monster. He was a little over 100 years old and had reached the third stage of the Great Emperor realm. He could be said to be the first person in the Ning family. Because of this, Ning Hongxian was extremely arrogant and didn't listen to other people's opinions at all. He always thought that he was always right. An emperor who couldn't accept good advice was very dangerous. From this point of view, Ning Hongxian was far inferior to the current great Emperor Ningwu. As an emperor, he naturally had arrogance and was willing to accept the world. However, Ning Hongxian was too arrogant and self-opinionated. Just now, Chaofan secretly told me that the Lord of the Third Lineage has arrived. The young master of the Third Lineage saw everything that happened today. If the Empire is in turmoil in the future, I hope you will stay true to your heart and fight for it. Don't be sealed by the path of the Emperor. The third old ancestor said helplessly. Some things might happen. Then, his figure gradually walked into the darkness. Just when City Lord Ning was in a daze, the third old ancestor's words came from the darkness again. In addition, Chaofan's teacher has 3 souls. He can kill a middle-level Emperor Realm expert at the first stage of the Venerable Realm. He is proficient in refining equipment, alchemy, inscription, and array Dao. Don't delay Chaofan's boundless future because of Ning Hongxuan's words. What? City Lord Ning almost shouted. His eyes were full of shock. It wasn't because of the arrival of the third lineage. A battle between the third and fifth lineage was inevitable. However, no matter which side won, the Ningwu Empire would still belong to the Ning family. What shocked City Lord Ning was that Qin Hao had 3 souls and could kill enemies 1 stage above him. He was omnipotent in alchemy and array Dao. This talent was monstrous. At this moment, he suddenly felt that the Saint of Scorching Sun Temple was not enough. On the other side, as Xiaogua and the others bowed, Qin Hao nodded slightly and waved his sleeves, indicating that there was no need to be so courteous. The imperial censor wearing the Kylan mask didn't bow like the others, but he also nodded slightly. Qin Hao didn't know much about imperial censors, so he also nodded at the other party. Little friend, I'm not dreaming, right? You scared the old man. Qing Lao's heart was not calm. He had come to the auction today, specifically for the Saint Soul elixir. However, this elixir was too precious. Then, he heard from Dangu that the Pavilion Master had come to the southern region. Qing Lao and Imperial Censor Gu were thinking about how to find the Pavilion Master and meet him. Qing Lao could discuss many Dao techniques with him. Unexpectedly, the Pavilion Master was so far away, but right in front of them. It was actually Qin Hao who had been talking and laughing with him all this time. This difference was too great. Not to mention Master Tang. Even Duanmu Qing Wei couldn't bear it. Who would have thought that Qin Hao, who had been suppressed by many forces and disliked by the Ning family, would? At the same time, he was the master of Dangu, whom everyone yearned for. When these two identities overlapped and attached to Qin Hao, it was hard not to feel uncomfortable. Previously, Ning Feiong despised you and hugged my brother Huey's thigh. Now, it seems that we have imperceptibly benefited from your good fortune. Imperial Censor Gu's expression was a little uncomfortable. Originally, he also agreed with Ning Feiong's words. The great elder of the left faction of the 10,000 Cultivator Alliance, Duanmu Qing Hui, controlled half of the 10,000 Cultivator Alliance. He was also the #1 alchemist in the southern region, a powerhouse half a step away from Dendi. But Pavilion Master Shiliang was no worse than Duanmu Qing Hui. In fact, his status was even higher. After all, the 3 sovereigns and 4 great sects were all fighting to see the Pavilion Master, hoping to receive his guidance. But no one had asked Duanmu Qing Hui for guidance. Although it was hard to accept, Imperial Censor Gu was overjoyed. He opened his mouth and laughed out loud. Now he wanted to see how the 3 sovereigns and 4 great sects would face Pavilion Master Shiliang, divine sovereign of the 9 heavens. Chapter 1277. Qian. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Chapter 1277. Qian, this Pavilion Master, concealing my identity. I just want to keep a low profile and don't like to be in the limelight. I hope Qing Lao doesn't blame me. Qin Hao rubbed his nose and smiled calmly. 3 black lines appeared on everyone's forehead. Low profile, don't like to be in the limelight. They almost believed him. When Qin Hao first entered Golden Light City, he kicked out one of the southern region's geniuses, Chang Hello, and made the spirit beast sex people sleep on the streets. In today's auction, he made Master Tang lose face in his old age and sold himself to the sect. After that, Qin Hao was afraid that others would misunderstand and think that he was trying to curry favor with the Ning family, so he directly fell out with the Ning family. How decisive! Everyone thought that he would lose in the competition for the ancient beast. However, in the face of the pressure from the Ning family, Blazing Sun Temple, and Herbal Medicine Hall, Qin Hao was not afraid. He was calm and composed and broke the rules, forcing Ning Hongxian to change his mind. He proved to the world that even in Ningwu, the Ning family didn't have the final say. As long as he wanted to, he could go against the Ning family's will. Until now, his second identity was revealed. He was actually the master of Dangu. Everyone present was visibly moved by this. Could all these things be considered low-key? Who would believe him? Only Ning Chaofan knew that his teacher was telling the truth. If he wanted to be in the limelight, Qin Hao had 100 ways to make people look at him differently. For example, he only needed to show the tyrannical fire source spirit, and Blazing Sun Temple would be shocked. At that time, the elders and even Yang Tai himself would put down their status and invite his teacher into the temple. If Qin Hao stepped into the temple, Yu Qianyang would have nothing to do with him in the future. His position as the saint would have to be changed. In fact, Qin Hao didn't do that and wouldn't do it. Ning Chaofan guessed that perhaps his teacher did not even care about the temple and did not care about the position of Son of Saint. He had only come here to pick up his friend and protect the one he loved. Fame and power? He didn't care. because he could easily get it at any time. The younger generation will surpass us in time. You're so young, but you've already concocted the formula for the Saint Soul pill. Old man's previous evaluation of you was obviously underestimating, Qing Lao said sincerely. In fact, his previous evaluation of Qin Hao was not low. Otherwise, he would not have called Qin Hao little friend. A half-step dandy who could enter Qing Lao's eyes in terms of alchemy. How many people could there be in the southern domain? At the very least, Tang Du, the number 2 Grandmaster Alchemist in the southern region, did not have the qualifications. But Qin Hao did. However, as Qin Hao's identity was revealed, everyone realized that the Saint Soul Elixir was refined by him. Inevitably, Qin Hao's ability rose another level in Qing Lao's heart. He was not flattering him perfunctorily. He was speaking the truth. Qin Hao's alchemy skills were so strong that they were a little too frightening. This was something that no one, including Tang Du, could refute. Otherwise, many forces would not be present today. The Ning family's auction would lose a lot of its glory. Everyone knew that the Saint Soul Elixir was the ultimate treasure of this auction. Everyone had come for it. If they questioned the owner of the formula, wouldn't they be questioning themselves? In the crowded sea of people, the elegant scholar sat quietly in his seat and watched silently. At this moment, his face was full of smiles. His calm eyes glowed with great brilliance. He had previously guessed that there might be some kind of relationship between Qin Hao and Dan Ge, but he never expected that Qin Hao would be Dan Ji's master. You surprised me quite a bit. Today's trip was not in vain, the elegant scholar said. He seemed to be in a good mood. He looked at the 2 blue-clothed imperial servants beside him. However, the 2 blue-clothed imperial servants' faces also twisted. They had secretly discussed before to test Qin Hao's talent and decide whether to let him join the great Ding royal family and become the young master's page boy. For Qin Hao, this was a great honor and would change his life. But they never expected that Qin Hao would be Dan Ji's master. Big brother, there are times when we make mistakes. The middle-aged man, Ning Kong, secretly transmitted his voice. His tone was very ashamed. His big brother, Ning Lai, nodded and did not dare to make a sound. Was there still a need to test him? Qin Hao's talent in alchemy was something that even Duanmu Qing Hui could not compare to. Would he be the little page boy of the great Ding royal family? How could he have the face to say that? Qing Lao is overpraising me. I just improved on the pill recipe of my predecessor. It can't be considered my own contribution. Qin Hao continued with a humble attitude. However, in the eyes of others, Qin Hao's modesty was a bit excessive. Even if he improved on the pill recipe of his predecessor, it still required monstrous talent. Otherwise, why hadn't Master Tang improved enough to create an epic-making immortal pill? Even Duanmu Qing Hui did not have this ability. Master Tang, old man thinks that you really need to ask this little friend for advice. In the Wuk Sword sect, an old man with a profound aura spoke. When he entered, City Lord Ning had called him Old Meng. He was a super expert at the half-step Sword Emperor realm. Senior Meng is right. Master Tang lowered his head and said. Old Meng did not mean to mock him. Instead, he said it for the sake of Tang Du. If he could exchange alchemy with Qin Hao, perhaps the problem of Tang Du's many years of self-imposed isolation could be solved. In terms of cultivation, there was hope for him to take another important step and reach Duanmu Qinghui's level. For Tang Du, it will be a great help. However, at this time, how could Tang Du have the face to do so? As if noticing the movement here, Qin Hao looked over with a smile. Senior Tang, do you still need me to go to the herb hall? I'll help you give some pointers to your disciple. Just now, you said that you admired the pavilion master for a long time. If I don't go, wouldn't that be not giving you face? It would make it seem that my alchemist has come to the southern territory and is too arrogant. Cough, cough. Master Tang coughed twice. His chest was strangely stuffy. Blood seemed to burst out of his throat, and he spat on the ground. He really hoped that Qin Hao would come to the herb hall. Of course, the premise was that today's unpleasant matter did not happen. But now that things had come to this, it was not convenient for Tang Du to answer. His face was already on the ground, and he could not pick it up. If he nodded at this time, it was equivalent to telling all the martial artists in the Southern Territory that the alchemist of the Herb Hall was not as good as Dan Ge, and that Tang Du's alchemy skills were not as good as Pavilion Master Dan Ge's. The reputation of the sect would plummet, and he would become a stepping stone for Dan Ge's rise. What's more, even if Qin Hao's alchemy skills were superb, he was still a junior after all. And you? Qin Hao ignored Tang Du and looked at Tang Xingchen again. In a while, you don't need to take Changhe Lo to find him. I'm right in front of you. If you have any questions, you can ask me directly. Since we are both alchemists, this Pavilion Master will not hide anything. After all, you're just a junior. Plop. Tang Xingchen could not stand steadily and fell to the ground after hearing Qin Hao's words. His head was sweating, his body was trembling, and his face was particularly ugly. Of course, the fear in his heart was definitely far greater than the surprise at this time. The person he respected and hoped to be bestowed with good fortune was actually the white-haired martial artist. His dream was instantly shattered, and his heart felt as if someone had ruthlessly stepped on it. He really did not expect that originally. He just wanted to push Qin Hao to the forefront of the storm and make Qin Hao lose face and stand out. In the end, he actually pushed out Dan Ge as Pavilion Master. What's more, Qin Hao called himself Pavilion Master at this time. Obviously, his status had been raised to the position of a sect master, which was the same as Tang Du's. In Qin Hao's eyes, the little Tang Xingchen was, of course, only a junior. But in fact, Tang Xingchen was much older than Qin Hao, and he was also an alchemist. However, Qin Hao was the sect master of a sect. Such a huge difference made him very uncomfortable. Chapter 1278. If Master Tang asks for guidance, the Pavilion Master can step in. There is no need for the Pavilion Master to ask for guidance from these nameless juniors. We can answer their questions. Gnawing Tube stepped forward. He looked at the crowd and said in a tone as if he was giving advice, "Juniors, you can ask me directly if you have any problems. I will guide you on behalf of the Pavilion Master." Qin Hao glared at Niao Tong. This old fellow had learned how to put on airs. Why would Yuan Monarch like him give guidance to a Yuan Venerate? The disciples of the three sovereigns and four sects were stunned. Was he looking down on Tang Xingchen of the Herbal Pill Hall? Tang Xingchen wasn't a nameless junior. He was rather prestigious among the rising stars in the southern region's alchemy world. Yet, he wasn't even qualified to ask for guidance from Pavilion Master Dan Ge. Dan Ge is too complacent. Are the prodigies of the southern region not worthy of Master Dan Ge's guidance? Someone shouted from afar. Qin Hao looked over and saw that the person who had spoken was Changhe Lo of the Spirit Beast sect. Qin Hao couldn't help but ask, "Who are you?" Changhe Lo's face stiffened. Didn't Qin Hao know who he was? He was deliberately making things difficult for him. Changhe Lo suppressed his anger and said proudly, "I am the eldest disciple of the Spirit Beast sect's sect master, Changhe Lo." "Oh," Qin Hao replied lazily. Then he retracted his gaze and ignored him. "You?" Changhe Lo was livid. What kind of attitude was that? He, Pavilion Master Qin, is indeed an extraordinary person. Therefore, you do extraordinary things. Today is a misunderstanding. I hope Pavilion Master Qin can forgive us if the Ning clan has treated you poorly. Ning Hongxian hesitated for a long time. Then, he was finally willing to put down his pride and walked over to Qin Hao. Now that the two of them were face to face, Ning Hongxian was no longer arrogant. He was gentle and had a brilliant smile on his face. That's right. If Pavilion Master Qin had revealed his identity earlier, there wouldn't have been so much trouble. My Ning family naturally wouldn't have been rude either. But fortunately, he didn't make a big mistake. In fact, when this prince first met the Pavilion Master, he felt a sense of familiarity in his heart. As the old saying goes, if you don't belong to the same family, you won't enter the same house. When Dan Ge moved to the Southern Territory, he first looked for my Ning family. Pavilion Master Qin, on the other hand, saved Transcendent's life. He is the great benefactor of our martial Ning royal family. Everyone, tell me, is it fate? Ha ha! Ning Fei Ong laughed loudly. his face became a little shameless. Previously, he had ridiculed Qin Hao and accused him of bewitching Ning Chaofan. His true motive was to covet the Ning family's power and influence, and to climb up to the royal family. Now he said that he had a familiar feeling for Qin Hao. Even if Ning Feiyong said it, he wouldn't believe it himself. However, there was nothing he could do. It was obvious that Qin Hao would not take the initiative to talk to them now that he had regained his pavilion master status. If they didn't take the initiative, they would lose Dan Ge. Moreover, in his words, he implied that what happened today was Qin Hao's fault. It was his fault for not showing his identity first. It was Qin Hao's fault. Even I feel ashamed for the two brothers of the Ning family. Li Yaxu's eyes flashed with disdain. From a standpoint of Ning Hongxian and Ning Feiyong, they really had to show up. Even if they were shameless, they had to stabilize the friendly relationship with Qin Hao first. Perhaps in other people's eyes, Qin Hao would nod with a smile and admit his fault. First, he would eliminate the grudge between the Ning family. In the end, the Ning family would make a perfunctory apology. Then, both sides would reconcile and hold a big banquet to celebrate. Unexpectedly, Qin Hao didn't do that. He didn't even look at Ning Hongxian. Just like how Ning Hongxian ignored Qin Hao before, he treated him as heir. Then, Qin Hao walked past the Ning family brothers and headed towards Xinyuan Wuba's camp. Everyone's heart trembled. It seemed that Qin Hao didn't want to restore the relationship with the Ning family. Instead, he chose another force that wasn't inferior to the Ning family. It was better for him to make friends with them. The Ning family suffered a bit of a loss this time. Yang Tai sighed. In today's auction, the Ning family promoted Dan Ge by sending out posters and inviting powerhouses from all over the world to gather in Golden Light City. They wasted so much manpower and resources, but in the end, it was all for the Xinyuan family. The others nodded. The Ning family suffered a loss. Who else could they blame? It was Ning Hongxian and Ning Feiyong, the two idiots who pushed Dan Ge to the Xinyuan family. They gave up such a fat piece of meat that was right in front of their mouths. However, was this really the result? Was Qin Hao on good terms with Xinyuan Wuba? The answer was no. Pavilion Master Qin, please wait. It's all my fault. Hongxian apologizes to you first. I hope you can give the Ning family a chance. We won't let you down. Ning Hongxian quickly caught up and asked politely. Qin Hao still ignored him and continued to walk forward. Pavilion Master Qin, is there no way for us to salvage the situation? Do you really want to be a heartless person? The Ning family has treated Dan Ge well. Ning Hongxian said anxiously. Go away. Qin Hao spat coldly. At this time, he was less than 10 steps away from Xinyuan Wuba. Qin Hao's eyes fell on Xiao Han in the crowd. He was even more determined than when he rescued Ahei Huang. Pavilion Master Qin, if you choose to abandon the Ning family for your girlfriend, you don't have to do that. As long as I say the word, Xinyuan Wuying will have to hand her over even if he doesn't want to. I have the final say in the Ningwu Empire, Ning Hongxian continued to say. He watched Qin Hao getting closer and closer to Xinyuan Wuba. Every step Qin Hao took gave him the illusion that he was thousands of miles away from Qin Hao. It was too late for regrets. As a crown prince, I hope you have some self-awareness. Go away. Qin Hao was still 5 steps away from Xinyuan Wuba, but Xinyuan Wuba's domineering aura had already reached him. However, what puzzled people was that there was no trace of joy on Xinyuan Wuba's face. Instead, he looked extremely nervous. Some elders of the Sword Sect saw that Xinyuan Wuba's body seemed to tremble as Qin Hao approached him. Chao Fan, quickly come and persuade your teacher. Ning Feiyong was burning with anxiety and said in a sobbing tone, He, third imperial brother, could it be that you've forgotten that I've already been expelled from my teacher's tutelage with a single word from you? Ning Chaofan sat far away while emitting a desolate aura. At this moment, this desolation was very cold. You dare to disobey me? Ning Feiyong angrily said, I told you to get your ass over here, so you get your ass over here. This is a direct order. This shout made Ning Chaofan lose face. Even if he was from the branch family, he was still a human. In Ning Feiyong's eyes, he was like an animal, being wantonly called out without a trace of dignity. Direct? What a good direct! In the direction of the pavilion, City Lord Ning coldly looked and murmured. He couldn't help but have the impulse to teach Ning Feiyong a lesson. Ning Chaofan was his precious son. Even he couldn't bear to scold or beat him. If the opposite party wasn't from the main branch, then he would have. Direct. Ning Chaofan also murmured and slowly got up. However, he still stood in the same place and didn't move. His eyes penetrated the sea of people and looked up at the elegant scholar who was sitting upright. Although the scholar was sitting, his aura could only make Ning Chaofan look up. Direct is not your family. After enduring for a long time, Ning Chaofan said, "How dare you?" Ning Feiyong roared and widened his eyes. Powerful emperor-level energy surged out of his body and wreaked havoc, shaking the entire auction house. This was killing intent. Everyone felt it and was extremely shocked. However, an even more shocking scene appeared. Everyone's attention was diverted from Ning Feiyong's body. It was Xinyuan Wuba's move. "If you dare to move forward, you will die," Xinyuan Wuba said coldly. Although his voice was low, it was like a raging cold current that swept through the auction house. That strong emperor's aura made everyone feel cold. What did his words mean? Obviously, he was warning Qin how he was walking over. Could it be that Dan Ji's master didn't switch to the Xinyuan family, but there was a grudge between them? At this moment, everyone's heart was filled with countless doubts. They were eager to know the truth and see what would happen next. It seemed that everyone had a premonition at the same time. Today, an unprecedented turmoil would occur in the southern region. The situation of thousands of years would be broken. The 3 emperors and 4 sects would not be spared. 23. Education 123 Literature Network. Chapter 1279. Qian Qian. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Emperor. Intent suppression. 6 years ago, a calamity put my life in danger. When I opened my eyes again, I saw you. That year, I was 16, and you were 15. Qin Hao ignored the warnings of the Xinyuan 5 tyrants. His gaze pierced through the crowd and landed on her in the center of the Xinyuan family. Her eyes were lifeless and hollow, as if she had no soul. However, Qin Hao's gaze was extremely gentle. That year, he met Xiao Han for the first time. That day, Qin Hao was no longer the young master of the Qin family. Instead, he was Dendi. You exchanged your body for medicine and entered the Zhuang Manor just to save my life. After that, I annulled the marriage contract, killed the Zhuang family, and took over the hunt. It wasn't to make the Qin family famous, but to protect you for the rest of your life. With that, Qin Hao took a step forward. He was only 4 steps away from Xinyuan Wuba. Xinyuan Wuba's majestic aura shook. His fierce gaze exuded a majestic aura. His emperor intent raged and turned into endless emperor aura to attack Qin Hao. This emperor aura was just an aura and did not contain the power of laws. Its purpose was to intimidate and prevent Qin Hao from moving forward. Xinyuan Wuba, one of the descendants of the 3 sovereigns, could not openly kill someone in the Ning family's territory. Otherwise, where would great Emperor Ning Wu's dignity go? If another member of the royal family killed someone in the Ning family's territory, it would mean that the Xinyuan family was challenging the Ning family. If great Emperor Ning Wu did not kill them, the martial artists of the southern region would mock the Ning family for being inferior to the Xinyuan family. Therefore, Xinyuan Wuba could not take the initiative to attack. It was not that he did not dare, but that he could not. He needed to anger Qin Hao and make him break the rules of the Ning family first. However, even if it was just this emperor aura, it was enough to make an ordinary person tremble. Very few of the first-rate geniuses of the southern region present could withstand the emperor aura. At least, Tang Xingqian and Chang Helou did not have the ability to do so. However, Qin Hao ignored Xinyuan Wuba's imperial aura. It was as if Xinyuan Wuba did not exist in his eyes. This Shiliang Pavilion Master is so brave. Although he is the Pavilion Master, how old is he? With his age, he would only be a junior in our sect. However, he was able to withstand the intimidation of an Emperor stage powerhouse. Xianyuan Wuba's aura is completely useless against him. The elders of the Sword Sect, the powerhouses of the Sacred Halls, and the people of the Arhut Palace were all in awe. It was no wonder that at such a young age, Qin Hao was able to assume the position of Pavilion Master. Judging from this, Qin Hao's bearing and courage did not lose out to them. In fact, he might even surpass them. Ning Hongxian and Ning Feiyang stood where they were. They did not know whether to move or not. They did not even try to make a move because Qin Hao had just ignored them. He doesn't know what's good for him. How dare he bear the pressure of an Emperor stage powerhouse and step forward? Tang Xingqian's eyes were filled with viciousness. At this time, he hoped that Qin Hao would die in the hands of Xianyuan Wuba. That man was too dazzling. His identity, status, and alchemy skills were all better than his. If Qin Hao stayed in the southern region, he would definitely become the second Duanmu Qingwei in the future. Tang Xingqian would have nowhere to go. Despite saying that, Tang Xingqian's legs trembled when he sensed Xianyuan Wuba's Emperor's aura from afar. It was hard to imagine how powerful Xianyuan Wuba's aura would be if he stood face to face with him. Xianyuan Wuba could probably make him kneel with just a thought. However, at that moment, Xianyuan Wuba's complexion was unsightly. His Emperor's might was simply useless. Qin Hao did not even frown in the slightest. He was completely unaffected. This caused Xianyuan Wuba's prestige to suffer a huge blow. In the past, when Xianyuan Wuba was slightly angered, even Xianyuan Wuying and Xianyuan Wuyao would cower. Xianyuan Wuying's son, Xianyuan Foam, would tremble in fear. But Qin Hao was in the middle of the pressure and seemed to be free from the shackles. It was so unusual that it could be called demonic. Gravity! Xianyuan Wuba shouted in a low voice. His firm face tightened. A visible earthy yellow power stirred the surrounding space. The space cracked under the pressure. Then, this power mixed with the Emperor aura and blasted toward Qin Hao's body. Bang! Everyone seemed to hear a muffled sound in their hearts. Then, they saw a trace of blood flowing from the corner of Qin Hao's mouth, staining the front of his clothes red. Emperor Aura Law, Old Meng of Wuk's Sword Sect said with a surprised expression. He did not expect Xianyuan Wuba to do this. Qin Hao was the master of Dange. There was no doubt about his noble status. But in the end, he was still a junior with a low cultivation base. As an Emperor Realm expert, not only did he use his Emperor Aura to oppress a junior, he even used the Emperor Aura Law to attack. Did Xianyuan Wuba have no shame? Old Meng was not the only one. Many elders of the Sword Sect and the experts of the Arhut Palace frowned. Xianyuan Wuba had indeed gone a little overboard. Even they would be greatly injured when facing the Emperor Aura Law. Without entering the Emperor realm, there was no way to fight against it. However, no one could blame him because they had no right to interfere. Emperor Aura Law, Qin Hao murmured. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His firm face showed no fear. At this moment, he glanced at Xianyuan Wuba, who had attacked, with an extremely sharp gaze. Emperor Aura Law was the supreme power of the great Tao that a martial artist comprehended after entering the Emperor realm. It was very vast. There were thousands of states in the world, and the Emperor Aura Law was different. Especially with the help of the Essence Soul, it was the trump card of an Emperor realm expert. They would not use it unless it was a life-or-death situation. He never expected that Xianyuan Wuba, who had lived for more than 160 years, would use the power of the law against him. But Qin Hao only glanced at it. Then, he faced the power of the law that shattered the space and took a second step. The law of gravity? It was exactly the same as the Emperor Aura of the Xianyuan family's ancestor, Xianyuan Wutian. But 600 years ago, Xianyuan Wutian was not qualified to see the Emperor Aura law that Qin Hao had comprehended. Because he was not qualified. 5 years ago, the Qin family swept away the external troubles and removed the internal troubles. The family was stable. I, young patriarch, agreed to Master Danxian's appointment and went to the #1 sect in Tianxin City, Fengli Temple, to enter the school. Qin Hao continued. At that time, Xiaohan followed him to sweep the outer sect, enter the inner sect, beat the deacons, and slap the elders. Every move could be said to be spectacular. In the end, Sect Master Chen Kang ordered the 10 elders to build a rainbow bridge as a king. One thing after another, if Xiaohan forgot all of it. It's okay, I'll tell her. At this time, Xiaohan seemed to have sensed something. The memories that were gradually disappearing in the depths of her heart were evoked. In her empty eyes, a teardrop fell silently. Chapter 1280. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Everyone watched from the side, not understanding why Qin Hao would go forward despite the pressure and anger Xianyuan Wuba. They followed his gaze and saw Xiao Han in the crowd, who was more beautiful than the fairy of the 9 heavens. They suddenly understood. Xiao Han was exceptionally outstanding. She was born with a noble and holy aura. It was rumored that she was Xianyuan Wuying's sweetheart and would be conferred as the imperial concubine soon. Was there a special relationship between her and Qin Hao? Whispers spread in the dark. Xiao Han was Qin Hao's true love. Although the Ning family and the Xianyuan family kept it a secret, there were still rumors. Everyone finally understood. So that was it. Ignoring the emperor's aura and not fearing the emperor's will. He deserves the title of Emperor Martial King of the Northern Frontier. Looking at Qin Hao, Xianyuan Wuji was moved. The disciples of the Xianyuan family knew the horror of gravity the best. However, the gravity that Xianyuan Wuba used was not the effect of the soul, but a more powerful and vast law. Once a martial artist mastered a certain law, he was basically a god in that domain. He was invincible within that law. If there was any power in this world that was more domineering than the law, it would be the power of a god-level master's law. Under the law was ineffective. Emperors were like ants. At this moment, Xianyuan Wuji admired Qin Hao very much. The latter's figure kept growing in his mind. In the end, he could only be looked up to. In this world, perhaps only the woman behind Xianyuan Wuying was worthy of a peerless genius like Qin Hao. Similarly, no man in this world was as heroic as Qin Hao to gain Xiao Han's trust. For some reason, Xianyuan Wuji felt that the two of them were a perfect match. It was as if they were destined to be together. On the contrary, Xianyuan Wuying seemed extremely redundant and even a little disgusting. Xianyuan Wuba, how dare you? Ning Feiong took a step forward. The other party had even used the law of Emperor's will. In this Golden Light City, the largest and most prosperous city in the martial Ning Empire other than the Imperial City, the Xianyuan family was so unscrupulous. However, Ning Hongxian pulled Ning Feiong back and shook his head. In fact, he also couldn't stand it. However, Qin Hao dared to ignore him just now. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. In that case, it would be good to let Master Dangu suffer a little and learn a lesson. Only then would Dangu understand the power of the Ning family, and Qin Hao change his attitude and ask them for help. Only when Qin Hao asked Ning Hongxian for help would he help. As far as Ning Hongxian was concerned, the result was inevitable. Qin Hao would come and beg him. Amongst those present, only he and Li Yaxu had the qualifications to compete with Xianyuan Wuba. Obviously, Ning Hongxian had the home advantage in the Ning family's territory. Otherwise, even Duanmu Qinghui appeared pale and powerless in front of Xianyuan Wuba. After all, the half-step Yuan the Arch was not a true arch. Qin Hao didn't care what the people present thought of him. In his eyes, there was only Xiao Han. He continued, "You acted decisively and mercilessly in the matter of Tang Fei just to avenge me. However, I misunderstood you at that time. I didn't even have a chance to make up for it. You were taken away by Butler Gong's son and Duan Ziju." At this point, Qin Hao clenched his fists tightly. The scene of the past seemed to appear in front of his eyes. At that time, he felt very guilty, but he was so powerless. Xiao Han didn't blame him. She left him a kiss and gazed at him affectionately. Then, she rode the skylark and circled above the Fengli temple for half a day before leaving reluctantly. At that time, Qin Hao swore that if they met again, he would never allow anyone to take Xiao Han away from him. We agreed that I would go to Beijiang to propose to her after 5 years when I became successful and became the most powerful person in Western Liang. I did it. In the imperial martial competition, I defeated all the people from Beijiang, suppressed the people from the southern region, and drove away the people from the east continent. I was crowned as the king of imperial martial arts. Honor, it wasn't easy for us to get to where we are today. I am your big brother Qin Hao. Qin Hao was deeply moved, and his eyes were a little moist. Although the people present didn't know about Qin Hao's past, they witnessed the growth of a generation's genius from these words. It was as if in their minds, there was a young man running, falling down, and climbing up again and again. He climbed thousands of mountains and crossed thousands of rivers. He wandered between life and death several times before he was ground into the wings of an eagle and soared above the firmament. Now, that young man was a young man with white hair on his forehead. No one knew what kind of heartbreaking story was hidden in his white hair. Fortunately, he finally became successful and achieved his dream. He became the most powerful person in Western Liang and the master of Dange. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Brother-in-law, sister. At this time, Kare was already crying. Sayogwa clenched his fists and bit his lip until it bled. How could Nawa rush up and help Qin Hao? But everyone knew that Xiao Han had been put under some kind of vicious seal, causing her memories to be blank. If there was anyone in the world who could awaken Xiao Han's fading memories and turn her back into Princess Daliao, it would be Qin Hao. Therefore, they must not disturb him. Damn it, how could this be? Xin Yuan Wuying suddenly realized that the net of consciousness he had placed in Xiao Han's mind was being attacked by an extremely strong will. That will was too strong and tenacious, and the net of consciousness was about to break. If that was the case, Xiao Han's memories would surge back like a tide. You're courting death. Xin Yuan Weiyao noticed that the divine sensiel that his second brother had used on Xiao Han was in great danger. His second brother, Xin Yuan Wuying, was at the peak of the Monarch stage and had just grasped the Emperor intent. He was about to step into the true Emperor stage, so his divine sensiel was extremely powerful. However, Qin had almost exposed it with just a few words. It was simply unimaginable. Where was the dignity of the Xin Yuan family's Monarch stage powerhouse? Xin Yuan Weiyao attacked directly. His figure flashed out explosively like a ferocious tiger that had left its cage, and it swept out with surging Monarch realm aura as an extremely swift afterimage appeared behind him. His fist that was hard like steel converged terrifying and boundless radiance as it smashed fiercely towards Qin Hao's head. This person must shut up. The attack of a peak Monarch stage powerhouse was no small matter. The third prince, Xin Yuan Weiyao, was not like his second brother, Xin Yuan Wuying, who had just grasped a trace of the Emperor intent. However, a peak Monarch stage powerhouse was extremely terrifying in itself. With Qin Hao's cultivation, it was obviously impossible for him to block it, and no one had expected this scene. Who would have thought that the Xin Yuan family would really dare to make a move in the Ningwu Empire and directly kill Dan Ji's young pavilion master? However, there was one person who was not any slower than Xin Yuan Weiyao. When the opponent's fist, which contained endless light, came to kill, a purple-robed figure quickly met it from behind Qin Hao. He was so fast that his clothes rustled and rolled up a golden afterimage. A powerful palm opened up and vigorously grabbed at Xin Yuan Weyao's fist. It was Dan Ji's imperial censer. Chapter 1281. Qian Qian. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation refusing to hand over in order to awaken Xiao Han's memory. Qin Hao took 2 steps towards Xin Yuan Wuba. The first step was to be impacted by the Emperor's aura. The second step was to be oppressed by the rules. If he took the third step, he was bound to face an even more terrifying suppression. Dange couldn't bear the consequences. The Imperial Censor wanted to stop Xianyuan Wuyao, but he didn't expect Xianyuan Wuyao to suddenly kill him. Thus, he didn't hesitate and stepped forward decisively. At this time, the Imperial Censor's body was surging with golden flames, and the terrifying aura of a peak emperor was raging. His aura was tyrannical and was no weaker than Xianyuan Wuyao's. He spread his 5 fingers and stood in front of Qin Hao. When Xianyuan Wuyao's radiant fist pierced through the void and blasted toward him, the Imperial Censor grabbed with his palm and blocked the fist with the power of an emperor. Bang, rumble! The fist and palm collided, and a series of sonic booms resounded in the field. It was like thunder from the 9 heavens, shaking the martial artists so much that their eardrums were about to burst. This collision made the face of Chang Helo, a first-rate genius of the southern region, suddenly turn red. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was almost paralyzed on the ground. As for the weak disciples of the other sect, they were like harvested wheat, collapsing in groups. Many people fainted on the spot. At the same time, the 2 terrifying golden energies mixed together and attacked each other, causing the space in the area between Qin Hao and Xianyuan Wuba to completely collapse, and several vortexes and black holes appeared. The strong shock waves crazily spread in all directions. Be careful! Sword Sect's Elder Meng was slightly shocked. His body spewed out a surge of sword intent, which turned into a row of sword curtains to block the shock waves radiating toward them. The cultivation of these 2 people was very terrifying, and they were faintly touching the half-step Yuan Emperor level at the same time. If not for the elders present, all the disciples would have been sent to hell by this punch and palm. Arhut Palace, Scorching Sun Temple, Li Yaxu, Ning Hongxian, Master Tang, and many other experts took action and displayed their skills to protect the juniors of their sect. However, on Dan Ji's side, Duan Zhanfei was not present. Facing the killing power that was wreaking havoc like a storm, the Danga members led by Gnawing Tube and Ironbite were so shocked that their faces turned pale. Seeing this, Qing Lao took a step forward and stood in front of Dan Ji's members. Duanmu Qingwei didn't attack. He just stood there quietly. However, it gave people the feeling that it was like an unshakable mountain range. As the storm swept across, Qing Lao's body suddenly emitted a platinum light. Although it was not as strong as a true monarch, it forcibly blocked the storm. The storm exploded with a bang and dissipated into nothingness within the platinum light. What a powerful alchemy master! This scene stunned Gnawing Tube and the others. Was this Dendi? Although he was only a half-step Dendi, the aftermath of 2 peak monarchs was as powerless as a child in front of Qing Lao. The monarch realm was really a terrifying existence. Thank you, Senior, for your protection. Sayogo bowed. Kei also nodded gratefully. This old man will naturally take care of our young friend's family, Qing Lao said indifferently. Not to mention that Qin Hao had helped him before. How could an alchemy master watch a fellow alchemist get killed by the aftermath? Denda had the responsibility to protect all living beings in the alchemy world. Such magnanimity we have learned from you. Gnawing Tube bowed. Dan Ji's members bowed one after another. This was an almighty person worthy of respect in the alchemy world. Master Tang could not compare to him. Qing Lao did not respond. He looked ahead. Although this imperial trainer Dan Ji's cultivation was not bad, Qin Hao's situation was not optimistic. You have some skills. Xianyuan Wuyao was blocked, and his body was forced back 2 steps. He looked at the mysterious imperial trainer in front of him, who was wearing a purple robe and a Kylan mask. His gaze was a little surprised. In the southern region, many monarchs had died at his hands. Not everyone had the ability to fight with him. Although he did not use his full strength in that punch, it was enough to let him know that this person from Shiliang was not weak. Reckless, the imperial trainer ignored Xianyuan Wuyao and pressed his palm on Qin Hao's shoulder. His figure flashed, and he returned to Dan Ji's camp, distancing himself from the Xianyuan family. He had never doubted Qin Hao's talent. It was so in the past, now, and in the future. However, no matter how strong a third-stage monarch was, how could he compete with a peak monarch? Not to mention, Xianyuan Wuba was a true emperor-level powerhouse. If Qin Hao took the third step, there was no doubt that the gravity law would completely crush him. The consequences would be unimaginable. I said that this matter will be handled by Duan Zhanfei and I. Arrogance will always be your weakness. It will only harm you. The imperial trainer looked at Qin Hao and reprimanded him. He only said this through telepathy and did not say it out loud. Qin Hao was Dan Ji's master and his superior. He could not go against his superior. However, from his tone, it did not sound like he was reprimanding him. It sounded more like he was helplessly persuading him. After leaving the gravity law's range, Qin Hao felt light all over. At this moment, he was very surprised by the imperial trainer's cultivation level. He remembered that the first time they met was at the alchemy competition organized by Dan Ge. At that time, he was being pressured by Dan Ji's internal affairs elder to kill Master's enemy, Mu Chunfeng. Zhen Kaiwa also felt that it was troublesome. In the end, it was the imperial trainer who stepped in and the matter was satisfactorily resolved. Logically speaking, this imperial trainer's position was below Yao Lao's. Yao Lao was Dan Ji's deputy pavilion master. In terms of cultivation level, he should be weaker than Yao Lao. However, after these 5 years, the imperial trainer had become so powerful that he had reached the peak of the monarch level. It was really shocking. How strong were Yi Longyuan and Xian Qiue at that time? The Dragon Abyss Emperor and Dan Ji's previous pavilion masters were only 8th-stage primitive emperors. They were already at the peak of Western Liang. Things had changed with the passage of time. The current imperial trainer Dan Ge was even stronger than Yi Longyuan. Moreover, Qin Hao did not doubt that even the current Yi Longyuan could not suppress this imperial trainer. He really did not know how this person improved. Although he was surprised, this was not the time to reminisce. Qin Hao replied, "How to solve it? Let the Ning family step in?" Duan Zhanfei did not follow the team to Golden Light City. Instead, he stayed in the Ning Wu Empire's palace. Qin Hao did not think that Duan Zhanfei and Great Emperor Ning Wu would hit it off at first sight. Who was Duan Zhanfei? The war king of Western Liang, the most ruthless person under Shao Yi. He treated Shao Han like his own son. How could Duan Zhanfei sit still when Princess Dayao was in trouble? All of this must be because he was negotiating with Great Emperor Ning Wu. Everyone knew very well that it was not so easy to make the Xianyuan family hand over the princess. If the conditions were not good enough, Great Emperor Ning Wu would not be so ruthless as to fall out with the Xianyuan family. As for what Duan Zhanfei would do, Qin Hao did not know, nor did he want to know. He only knew that even if he was no longer the Dendi of the past, however, his strength of character was still there. Ask him to beg the Ning family? Especially after seeing Ning Hongxian and Ning Feiyang's character today. Sorry, he could not do it. However, the tone of the imperial messenger's voice seemed to have triggered a deep memory in Qin Hao. He felt more and more like an old friend. What's the harm in lowering your head for once? The imperial messenger said, a little anxious. Qin Hao was like this in the past. It was not easy to survive the disaster of the Nine Heavens God's punishment formation, which could kill a god-level expert. It was a miracle. However, after his rebirth, Qin Hao's temper did not change at all. How much do you know about me? Is it any of your business? Qin Hao felt more and more that this person was strange. However, he could not remember who he was in such a short time. Even if he remembered, he would not change his way of doing things. Beg the Ning family? Beg someone like Ning Hongxian? If it was someone else, such as the elegant scholar, Qin Hao would be willing to do it without hesitation. However, Ning Hongxian was not worthy. At this moment, the imperial messenger fell silent. He knew that he could not persuade Qin Hao at all. That was why that happened 600 years ago. He thought that Qin Hao would change himself after his rebirth. However, he did not. In these few seconds, Qin Hao and the imperial messenger secretly exchanged a few words. However, From each other's words, they got a lot of information. At this moment, Ning Hongxian sneered. He felt that he should step in. After all, Qin Hao and the Imperial Messenger were in a deadlock. There was no way out. Ning Hongxian and Ning Feiyang exchanged glances. Both of them understood each other and stepped forward at the same time. Ning Hongxian released his majestic aura and shouted, "Xian Yuan Wuba, you are becoming more and more arrogant. Do you think the Golden Light City is your Nanao? How dare you try to kill the master of the Elixir Pavilion? Do you have any respect for the Ning family?" Ning Feiyang shouted. On the surface, he seemed to be defending the Elixir Pavilion, but on the surface, he seemed to be gloating. Then, the two looked at Qin Hao and said, "Is Pavilion Master Qin okay?" "Pavilion Master is fine," the Imperial Messenger answered. If he did not speak, Qin Hao would not care about the two brothers of the Ning family. "That's good. It was a false alarm. I didn't react in time." Ning Hongxian smiled hypocritically. Did he need to react? If he wanted to stop him, he only needed to activate his Emperor Intent rules, and Xianyuan Wuyao would be restrained immediately. He did this on purpose to let Qin Hao know what it meant to struggle. Pavilion Master is fine. Should the Ning family give an explanation? The Imperial Messenger asked coldly. Dango was invited to the auction and was viciously attacked by the Xianyuan family. How would the Ning family deal with this? Of course, we will give Dango an answer. Ning Hongshuan's smile grew wider. Was Dango showing mercy? Then, he looked at Xianyuan Wuba and released his Emperor Qi. He said, "Xianyuan Wuba, what do you think?" According to the rules, Xianyuan Wuyao should stand up and be punished by the Ning family. If it was a light punishment, he would be crippled. If it was a heavy punishment, he would be executed. Xianyuan Wuyao was the prince of Nanao. Naturally, he could not be treated like an ordinary person. They would use this as a condition in exchange for Xiao Han's pardon. Then, the Xianyuan family would pretend to apologize to Qin Hao. In Ning Hongshuan's opinion, this was the most appropriate move. He and Xianyuan Wuba were both smart people. They should be able to understand what he was thinking. However, this was just his wishful thinking. Why would Xianyuan Wuba hand over his brother? They were both crown princes. If Ning Hongxian handed him over so easily, would Xianyuan Wuba be afraid of Great Emperor Ning Wu's heir? It was even more impossible for him to use his brother as a condition to send Xiao Han back to Qin Hao and apologize to Qin Hao. Ning Hongxian must be dreaming. What can I do? Let Dangu trample on the dignity of the Xianyuan family? You should ask him first if he is willing to kneel at my feet and apologize to me first. Xianyuan Wuba said coldly. Not only did he refuse to hand over Xianyuan Wuyao, but he also wanted Qin Hao to kneel and apologize. This tough stance fully displayed the dominance of the Xianyuan family. Xianyuan Wuyao, who was beside him, naturally raised his head proudly. This was his elder brother, the crown prince of Nanao, the future great emperor of Nanao. Upon hearing this, Ning Hongxian and Ning Feiyang's expressions changed. Was he refusing to hand over Xianyuan Wuyao and disregarding Ning Wuwei's trust? Chapter 1282. Qian Qian. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Fight him. In Golden Light City, he broke the rules of the auction house and killed someone in front of Ning Hongxian. How could the next great Emperor Ning Wu maintain his prestige? As the elder brother, Xianyuan Wuba not only did not punish him, but also acquiesced to Xianyuan Wuyao's actions. The expert sighed. As expected of his name, he was insufferably arrogant. It was as if there was no tyrant in the world in Xianyuan Wuba's eyes. He was the only one. Ning Hongshuan's expression was extremely ugly. He did not expect Xianyuan Wuyao to be so tough. Then again, if Xianyuan Wuba did not hand over the person, Ning Hongxian could not do anything to him. Kill him? It would definitely cause a war between the Ning Wu Empire and Nanao. The price would be too great. None of the three emperors could afford it. Taking 2 deep breaths, Ning Hongshuan's eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. he said with a straight face. It's fine if you don't want to hand it over. I will not pursue Xianyuan Wuyao's mistake. However, the girl behind Xianyuan Wuying, shouldn't you give her freedom back? Ning Hongxian was obviously referring to Xiao Han. At this moment, Ning Chaofan, who was far away, could not help but become more dignified. He looked over. His eldest brother's behavior today was indeed disappointing. But at least he kept his word. He finally helped his teacher and asked the Xianyuan family to hand over the person. Haha, Ning Hongxian, what do you mean? Xianyuan Wuba clasped his hands behind his back and turned to look at Xiao Han. He smiled as if nothing had happened and said, That girl met my second brother by chance. The two of them fell in love with each other and fell in love with each other in just a few days, unable to extricate themselves. Not long after, she became the imperial concubine of the Xianyuan family. Why do you want me to give her freedom back? In his words, Xiao Han was willing. How could love be forced? You're talking nonsense. Falling in love with each other and loving each other? Don't you know whether you controlled her or not? This time, even Ning Feiyong could not stand it anymore. Xianyuan Wuba was too shameless. Ning Feiyong, you're a prince of Ning Wu royal family. Don't you feel ashamed of the Ning family? Xianyuan Wuba shouted. Ning Feiyong didn't deserve to be a prince. He was simply a boorish villager. Pay attention to your attitude. Ning Hongxian reprimanded him in a low voice. What he had said just now was indeed unbearable. Ning Feiyong's mouth twitched, and he lowered his head. Enough, I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Since you didn't restrict her freedom, do you dare to take a few steps back and see what choice she has? Qin Hao took a few more steps forward. He knew that letting Ning Hongxian settle this was equivalent to wasting time. Even if he argued with Xianyuan Wuba for decades, there would still be no conclusion. As for the members of the Xianyuan family, they retreated to see what Xiao Han would do. In reality, Qin Hao was taking a huge risk. Xiao Han was obviously under Xianyuan Wuying's control. Once he lost control and stepped back into the Xianyuan family's team, it would prove that Xianyuan Wuba was telling the truth. The two of them were indeed in love. However, Qin Hao trusted Xiao Han more. Just now, when he was talking about their past, he had already sensed that Xiao Han was showing signs of regaining her memories. At that moment, she must be fighting with all her might to break free from Xianyuan Wuying's control. Based on this, there was a great possibility that Han would regain her consciousness and come to his side. Qin Hao was gambling. I think it'll work. In the Arhut Palace's camp, beside Luo Yuliang, a brawny man about 2 meters tall with bulging muscles and a frightening bronze skin spoke. This man was the leader of the Arhut Palace's team this time. He was the leader of the Arhut Palace's team, the head of the 9 halls, the hall master of the Yi Luo Hall, and a true Monarch stage powerhouse. He stroked his huge bald head and looked at Xianyuan Wuying with a smile. Since you're so confident, Xianyuan Wuying, why don't you take a few steps back and let the girl choose for herself? Let's see who she will choose between you and the master of Dange. I'm looking forward to the result. Ha ha ha. Xiao Han and Qin Hao were lovers. Although this matter was not completely publicized, it was already known by the powerhouses from all sides. As bystanders, the Sword Sect and the Arhut Palace. There were also a small number of powerhouses from the Fierce Sun Temple who despised Xianyuan Wuying's style. However, no one could say anything on the surface. No one was stupid enough to provoke the Xianyuan family openly. Therefore, they could only play the fool and take advantage of the situation. Even so, it was not difficult to see that Hall Master Yi Luo was already protecting Qin Hao. At this moment, Elder Meng and the others also nodded. Xianyuan Wuying's brows furrowed. Of course, he did not think it was appropriate. When Qin Hao talked about their past, Xiao Han's consciousness was ignited, and she put up an unusually fierce resistance against the soul seal. She almost broke through the net and regained her memories. If he agreed with Qin Hao, even Xianyuan Wuying, who had always been very proud of himself, would feel a little guilty. In his life, he had never seen a woman as unyielding as Xiao Han. Her consciousness was sealed, but she did not give up. When someone she cared about appeared, The other party would ignite the seed of hope with just a few words, and it would take root and sprout, breaking through the prison. Are you worthy to compete with my father? At this moment, behind Xian Yuan Wuying, an extremely handsome young man in his early 20s stood out. Xian Yuan Feng, Xian Yuan Wuying's son. He was the one who volunteered to fight Qin Hao because of Xian Yuan Wuji's setback. Who do you think you are? How dare you interrupt the conversation between the Shiliang Pavilion Master and the Crown Prince of Nanao? Xiaohua took a few steps forward and glared at him. You? Xian Yuan Feng's eyes widened, and his anger surged. Fenger, back off, Xian Yuan Wuying said in a low voice. Then he cupped his hands and bowed to Xian Yuan Wuba. Elder brother, I'm sorry to put you in a difficult position. You and I are brothers. You don't have to be so polite to me. Xian Yuan Wuba said. Nanao Emperor had many princes, and there were factions among them. However, Xian Yuan Wuba and Xian Yuan Wuying were born from the same mother, and they were both sons of the Empress. Although Xian Yuan Wuyao was not her biological son, he was adopted by the Empress from other concubines. He was raised by the Empress from a young age, and was equivalent to her third son. Therefore, as the elder brother, Xian Yuan Wuba took special care of Xian Yuan Wuying and Xian Yuan Wuyao. This was a treatment that the other princes envied, but could not enjoy. Since we are brothers, of course, I can't put you in a difficult position. You have done enough for me. Next, please let me make my own decision. Xian Yuan Wuying pleaded. In Ningwu Empire, they had no home advantage. If Ning Hongxian really turned hostile, he would be a great threat to them. However, Xian Yuan Wuba did not lose his composure as an elder brother. In any case, he would not let his two brothers be bullied, even if this was Ningwu Empire. All right, Xian Yuan Wuba stepped back. There was no need for explanations between brothers. Next, Xian Yuan Wuying carefully observed Qin Hao. His slightly squinted eyes were like two sharp needles that pierced into Qin Hao's brain. He wanted to see what was in his head that he dared to openly challenge the Xian Yuan family. I can promise you. Unexpectedly, Xian Yuan Wuying agreed to Qin Hao's suggestion and let Xiao Han make his own decision. Everyone could not help but be surprised. Not only were the people from Sword Sect, Sacred Hall, and Arhut Palace stunned, but Xian Yuan Wuba and Xian Yuan Wuyao were also stunned. Of course, Qin Hao did not expect Xian Yuan Wuying to be so straightforward. He was afraid that Xian Yuan Wuying had ulterior motives and would not return the initiative to Xiao Han so easily. Father, Xian Yuan Feng said anxiously. Xian Yuan Wuying waved his hand to stop Xian Yuan Feng. He said to Qin Hao, I can't promise you, but it does not mean that I am afraid of you. I just want to prove to everyone that Lung Xian and I are truly in love. Heaven and earth can be our witness. Lung Xian? Qin Hao murmured with a sarcastic sneer. Was this the name he gave to Xiao Han? What a terrible name. And then? Qin Hao asked. His eyes darted around as he quickly thought of a countermeasure. If Xian Yuan Zhen dared to let Xiao Han out, Dindi would have lived in vain. There must be a backup plan behind this. Before Lung Xian makes her choice, shouldn't you also give an explanation to the people of the Xian Yuan family? Xian Yuan Wuying was furious. He turned around and shouted, Xian Yuan Wuji, second uncle. Xian Yuan Wuji stepped forward helplessly. Sure enough, they want to expose Qin Hao's crime with the help of my broken arm. Of course, this was just to accuse him. In fact, Xian Yuan Wuji's broken arm had nothing to do with Qin Hao. When Xian Yuan Wuji stepped forward, Qin Hao's eyes fell on him. Xian Yuan Wuji smiled faintly, but it was very forced. It could be seen that he was really helpless. It was as if his eyes were telling Qin Hao that he had no intention of going against him. Following this, everyone became curious as well. Why did Xian Yuan Wuying pull out a junior? Moreover, this junior's sleeve was empty. He was a person with a broken arm. Could it be that this arm had been cut off by the master of Danga? Many experts here did not know that Xian Yuan Wuji had participated in the Emperor Martial competition. After all, these experts were the real big shots in their sect. Their cultivation was usually at the peak Emperor level, half-step Emperor level, or even the true emperor level. Normally, they only focused on cultivation and strived to reach the next level, unless there was a major event in their sect or a grand event in the southern region, such as the auction held once every 5 years in the martial Ning Empire. Only then would these big shots show up. Therefore, they did not know Qin Hao's and Xiao Han's identities. They only knew that Qin Hao was the master of Dangu in western Liang, and Xiao Han might be a girl from a remote place. Then, Qin Hao and Xiao Han were lovers. They knew nothing else. Ning Hongxian and Ning Feiang were also among them. If they knew that Xiao Han was the beloved daughter of Emperor Xiao of Great Liao, and Qin Hao was the son-in-law of Emperor Xiao of Great Liao, perhaps they would be more resolute in their stand against the Xianyuan clan. Why did you call him out? Qin Hao glanced at Xianyuan Wuji indifferently. A loser in the southern region was just a passerby. In fact, if Xianyuan Wuji hadn't seen Qin Hao draw the power of heaven and earth and pull out the crimson arrow, he would have killed Xianyuan Wuji. Even Qin Hao had never thought of killing him. He killed him because he was worried that he would leak the secret of the crimson arrow to the Xianyuan family. But now, it seemed that he didn't. Qin Hao also felt that Xianyuan Wuji's temperament had changed a lot. He was no longer as arrogant as before. Standing there, Xianyuan Wuji was like an idle person who stood aloof from worldly affairs. What do you mean? Do you need me to explain? According to what you said before, you defeated the people of the northern frontier, suppressed the people of the southern region, and drove away the people of the east continent. My Xianyuan family's disciple broke an arm in the battle, but he was not as good as others, so I can't say anything. However, I don't agree with you about suppressing the people of the southern region. Who did you suppress? Does he represent the entire southern region? Xianyuan Wuying snorted. Was he not convinced? Didn't want to fight. Chapter 1283. Primordial Alchemy Venerate. All the experts were enlightened. It turned out that Xianyuan Wuji's arm was crippled by Qin Hao. It originated from a competition, a proper contest. A proper contest had many rules and restrictions. It was a complete test of one's strength. If one lost a battle and lost an arm, they could only blame themselves for being inferior. There was nothing to pursue. The martial Dao was filled with all kinds of challenges. Xianyuan Wing also said that he would not pursue the matter, but Qin Hao's attitude displeased him. What did he mean by suppressing the southern region? All the experts present were from the southern region. Qin Hao's arrogant claim of suppressing the entire southern region was not only displeasing to Xianyuan Wuying, but also many people. Was there no one else who could praise the southern region? This was a slap to the southern region's face. Of course, the experts were only dissatisfied. In their opinion, perhaps Qin Hao had defeated a few juniors from the southern region. This included the severed arm descendant of the Xianyuan family. Therefore, he dared to claim that he was suppressing the southern region. In fact, the Xianyuan family descendant's talent was not bad. All the experts agreed on this point. However, it could not be said that it represented the entire southern region standard. Blazing Sun Temple, Arhut Palace, Li family, Ning family, Sword sect. Which one did not have their own geniuses? Even Changhe Lo of the Spirit Beast sect and Tang Xingqian of the Herbal Pill Hall might not be inferior to Xianyuan Wuji. However, these people could only be considered first-rate and could not be called the role models of the southern region. If Qin Hao had defeated Yu Qianyang of the Sacred Temple or Shou Wuk of the Sword sect, then the seniors present might agree with Qin Hao's point of view and be worthy of the title of suppressing the southern region. After all, Yu Qianyang and Shou Wuk were the strongest among their peers. They were the flag-bearers of this generation of the southern region. As for defeating a descendant of a Xianyuan family, sorry, all the experts would never agree. If Pavilion Master Qin claimed that his alchemy skills were unparalleled among his peers, Old Man would not object. But isn't it a bit exaggerated to say that he's suppressing the southern region in terms of martial arts? Old Meng of the Sword sect stroked his beard and smiled faintly. He looked at the extraordinary white-clothed figure among the disciples of the sect. His eyes were filled with admiration. Shou Wuk, Wuk Sword sect's #1 inner disciple. He was a predetermined core disciple, and he was given the name Wuk by the sword sect's leader, the Sword Emperor. From this, one could see how monstrous his talent was. The two words, Wuk, were not only the name of the sword sect. It also told the world that Sho Wuk was flawless and had no flaws. In Senior Meng's eyes, only Sho Wuk from his sect was qualified to be the leader of the younger generation in the southern mountain range. Even Yu Qianyang, the saint of the sacred temple, was slightly inferior in comparison. It's not just exaggerated, it's simply arrogant. Yang Tai snorted. At the same time, he also looked at Yu Qianyang, who was surrounded by the disciples like stars surrounding the moon. He was just a descendant of a Xianyuan family. What was there to show off by defeating him? To put it bluntly, Xianyuan Wuji wouldn't even have a chance to struggle in front of Yu Qianyang. He would be completely crushed. If Qin Hao fought with Yu Qianyang from his sect, he would never dare to claim that he was the conqueror of the southern mountain range in his life. At the same time, Yu Qianyang's face was filled with disdain. He slowly said with contempt, "Pavilion Master Qin, as an alchemist, you should study alchemy diligently. As for martial arts, it's not your forte. Don't underestimate the southern mountain range just because you defeated a few small fries." There were two meanings in his words. First, he was looking down on Qin Hao. Second, he was insulting Xianyuan Wuji. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Small fries? Suppressing the son of the northern mountain range's warlord with one move and severely injuring Duan Ziju. He was just a small fries in Yu Qianyang's eyes. In an instant, Yang Tai's face was filled with glory. As for the elders of the other forces, they just shook their heads and chuckled. They didn't refute, which was a tacit agreement. Xianyuan Wuba's face was cold. He didn't say anything. Yu Qianyang was arrogant, but he had the right to be. In all fairness, he was right. If Xianyuan Wuji fought with him, Xianyuan Wuji might not have the courage, just like when he faced the peerless genius of the East Continent. He would be completely crushed. Son of the saint, Wuji's talent is indeed not outstanding in the family. Because of his limited ability, he will only lose to me. Don't involve the entire Xianyuan family. I hope you remember this. Otherwise, even if I can't defeat you, I won't let you humiliate the Xianyuan family. Xianyuan Wuji clenched his fist. His eyes became extremely sharp. He no longer looked dispirited. Endless battle intent surged from his body. He said, "Besides, don't judge someone you've never fought with your good judgment. Maybe they're stronger than you. At that time, you will feel even more ashamed." Boom. Everyone was shocked. Xianyuan Wuba was also amazed by this scene. How could Xianyuan Wuji become so sharp all of a sudden? After coming back from North Border, Xianyuan Wuji was muddle-headed like a walking corpse. No matter how hard he tried to persuade him, it was useless. He was addicted to drinking and degenerated. On the contrary, because of Yu Qianyang's words, his courage was ignited. Could it be? Wuji has never been depressed. Qin Hao was also surprised. He could see that Yu Qianyang did have some ability. He couldn't guarantee that Yu Qianyang's ability was stronger than Zhou Wudao's, but it shouldn't be much worse. Previously, when facing Zhou Wudao, Xianyuan Wuji did something shameful. He knelt down in public. He even asked Qin how to kneel down with him, claiming that it was his honor. Now, when facing an opponent of the same level, Yu Qianyang, who was not much worse than Zhou Wudao, acted so responsibly. Xianyuan Wuji's heart was filled with a flame of fighting spirit. The last two words were even a provocation, as if he didn't think that Yu Qianyang was strong. It seems that what happened in the north has baptized Xianyuan Wuji's martial heart, making him sublimate. Qin Hao thought. At this moment, it was enough to see the change in the other party. "Wuji, back off," Xianyuan Wuying said with a gratified face. Finally, this junior of the family didn't fall into a state of despair after the setback. However, his purpose this time was not to compete with the Scorching Sun Temple, but to target Qin Hao. "Trash, don't you feel ashamed?" Xianyuan Feng shouted with a sullen face. Xianyuan Wuji's talent was far inferior to his. Even he didn't dare to face Yu Qianyang, But this trash who had one arm chopped off dared to challenge the holy son of the scorching sun temple. He was getting bolder and bolder. Hearing the word trash, Xianyuan Wuji's body trembled, and he sighed silently. Instantly, his fighting spirit disappeared, and he turned back into a person with dim eyes. He lowered his head and walked back to the back of the team. However, his words just now were sincere. Although he didn't fight with Qin Hao in the Emperor Martial competition, when Qin Hao fought with Zhou Wudao, he was in danger several times, but he always counterattacked. In the end, his arrow pierced through Zhou Wudao's soul, scaring the geniuses of the East continent away. They didn't even dare to come back to take the competition prizes. This chapter is not finished. Please turn the page. Just based on this point, he completely acknowledged Qin Hao. Even if they didn't fight, he would still lose to him. But even if he lost, he was convinced. And Yu Qianyang wasn't much stronger than Zhou Wudao. He might even be weaker. How could he look down on the champion of the Emperor Martial competition? At this moment, Xianyuan Wuji really wanted to see Qin Hao teach the Holy Sun a lesson. You don't deserve to talk to me. Yu Qianyang threw a faint glance at Xianyuan Wuji. Look at that dejected back. What's his status in Xianyuan clan? He could barely squeeze into the top class. Not to mention him, even Xianyuan Feng didn't deserve to face him. In the entire Xianyuan clan, only Xianyuan Wuba's youngest son was qualified to fight with Yu Qianyang. Of course, the one who would lose would definitely not be him. Wuji only said to protect the Xianyuan clan. He doesn't want to compete with the Holy Sun. Xianyuan Wuying smiled and nodded at Yang Tai. Yang Tai smiled gently. Of course, he thought so, because Xianyuan Wuji was not qualified to compete with Yu Qianyang. Senior, you don't need to explain. I won't bicker with him. The Xianyuan royal family has a noble bloodline and can control gravity. There are many geniuses in the family. Today, Xianyuan Feng is here. However, Senior Wuba's youngest son is even more skilled. Even Xianyang admires him very much. Yu Qianwei replied indifferently, as if he was giving advice. His words showed that he was giving face to the Xianyuan clan. Then, he glanced at Qin Hao and said, Pavilion Master Qin might be too obsessed with alchemy. He has some achievements in alchemy and thinks that his martial arts are equally profound. But he spends all his time refining pills and rarely has the chance to see real geniuses. That's why he said those arrogant words. Senior Wuying, please don't bicker with him. Xianyuan Wuying smiled and nodded. Of course I won't bicker with him. After all, he's only an alchemist. He might win by luck if he fought with Wuji. However, since he said that he could suppress the entire southern region, he must have some ability. I want to see his ability and see if he's worthy of Long Xian. If he's really good, I'm willing to let Long Xian stand out and let her choose someone better. This is also for her happiness and future. Sigh. Xianyuan Wuying sighed with a sense of righteousness. I see. Everyone understood. This was to test Qin Hao's talent. Only when Qin Hao showed ability that he recognized, Xianyuan Wuying would let Xiao Han go. If not, he wouldn't. This was something that no one could refuse. Senior is already a peak Emperor stage powerhouse. Between him and Senior, of course Senior's talent is stronger and more suitable for Miss Long Xian. After all, no one can say for sure how far he can go in the future. However, it doesn't prevent everyone from witnessing his ability. Although, maybe he's not that great. Yu Qianyang smiled. At this time, Xiaogua and the others were already full of anger. They glared at the holy sun of the sacred temple. This person was trampling on Big Brother and raising his status. Qin Hao glanced coldly at Yu Qianyang and ignored him. Instead, he said to Xianyuan Wuying, How do you prove it? Xianyuan Wuying's lips curled into a smile. He stretched out his right palm and said, Take my palm. If you don't die, you'll be qualified to stand in front of Long Xian and let her choose someone better between you and me. No. Imperial trainer Dan Gu growled angrily. He took a big step forward and stood firmly in front of Qin Hao. This time, no matter what, he would not indulge Qin Hao. There was a price to pay for arrogance. In a chapter. Chapter 1284. a peak monarch who had just glimpsed the laws of the Emperor intent. He was going up against a Yuan Venerate, the lowest of the lower Yuan Venerates. Everyone was astonished. Although it was only one palm, the difference in strength between the two was like heaven and earth. Xin Yuan Wuying was basically trying to kill him. This wasn't fair at all. Of course, I won't use my full strength. I will only use 10% of my strength in this palm, lest everyone says that I bully the weak. If you can take it, you will be qualified to stand in front of Lung Xian. If not, there is no need to talk about it. I hope you're not a coward. If not, even I feel that it is not worth it for Lung Xian. Xin Yuan Wuying stood with his hands behind his back. He claimed that he would only use 10% of his strength, but his whole body exuded a strong, oppressive force. Big brother, don't agree with him. Xiao was said anxiously. 10% of his strength is also the power of a peak monarch. Xin Yuan Wuying has just comprehended the laws of the Emperor intent. How terrifying is his palm? Brother-in-law, don't be fooled by him. His goal is to kill you. Shameless to the extreme. Pavilion Master, please reconsider. Pavilion Master, please reconsider. Dan Ji's members pleaded anxiously. No wonder Xin Yuan Wuying had agreed so readily. It turned out that he didn't want to give Qin Hao a chance. He wanted to kill him with one palm strike. If Qin Hao died, there would be no such chance. Little friend, although I don't know how capable you are, I can guarantee that you won't be able to take this palm strike, Qing Lao said. They had also just glimpsed the Emperor intent, so he knew how terrifying this level was. Xin Yuan Wuying obviously didn't have as deep an understanding of the Emperor intent as Qing Lao. After all, he wasn't a half-step Yuan the Arch. However, killing Qin Hao would be like squashing an ant. Even 10% of his strength was more than enough. Even the person you admire has spoken. Do as you see fit. The Imperial Censor stepped aside. He knew in his heart that he couldn't persuade Qin Hao. If Dendi really wanted to do it, no one in the world could stop him. However, Duanmu Qingwei had spoken. His analysis of the martial path was more important than the Imperial Censors. Qin Hao smiled bitterly. How could he not know that he would not be able to withstand this palm strike? The gap between the exalted realm and the peak of the Emperor realm was too great. It wasn't something that cultivation methods, treasures, or so-called trump cards could make up for. If they were at the same cultivation level, there might not be much difference between them. Of course, whoever cultivated a higher level cultivation method or had a higher level treasure would be stronger. They could even surpass levels to kill their enemies. However, in the face of absolute power, all the so-called cultivation methods and magical treasures were nothing. Even if Qin Hao had activated the Golden Bell protection and burned his dragon's strength to the limit, this palm was enough to take his life. Qin Hao took a step forward and stared at Xin Yuan Wuying with his deep eyes. With a mocking smile, he said, "If you want to kill me, just do it. Why do you have to be so secretive? Are the next generation of the Xin Yuan clan all people who hide their heads and show their tails? If you don't dare, then you don't dare. It's just a palm strike. I thought Master Dango was very capable. How dare such a coward claim to be able to suppress the southern region? How dare he stand in front of Miss Lung Xian and compete with my father?" Xin Yuan foam laughed. "Just a palm strike. Why don't you try to take on old man's?" Qing Lao leaned forward slightly. His usually amiable face became very serious. The faintly forming Emperor realm aura slowly spread out. His eyes were so bright that no one dared to look directly at them. Besides, old man only used half of his strength. "You?" Xin Yuan Feng didn't dare reply. Did he dare? Of course not. Although it was only a palm strike and only half of his strength, old man Duanmu's cultivation was still above Xin Yuan Wuing's. He was a true half-step Emperor realm cultivator. If Xin Yuan Feng dared to step forward, he would only be courting death. Xin Yuan Wuing's expression turned ugly at this moment. Master Dango didn't dare to take his palm strike, and his son mocked him. However, now that old man Duanmu had declared that his son would take on half of his strength, Xin Yuan Feng immediately shut his mouth. What did this mean? Xin Yuan Feng was even worse than Qin Hao. He couldn't even take on half of his strength. Duanmu Qingwei, You have repeatedly challenged my limits. Do you really think that I won't dare to touch you in the Ningwu Empire? Xianyuan Wuba stepped forward. A strong emperor realm aura bloomed. His body circulated with a platinum luster. This luster was several times stronger than when Qing Lao attacked. It was the power of emperor realm intent, and this power seemed to act on Qing Lao out of thin air. In an instant, Qing Lao felt the power of the Great Path descending from above his head. It was as heavy as Mount Tai. The space around him was crushed by this power. Almost everyone could hear the sound of bones grinding. Qing Lao's body faintly rose. He must be bearing the suppression power of the other party. Gravity law, Brother Hui. Master Gu clenched his fists nervously. In this situation, as a high-level origin emperor, he was not qualified to intervene. There is no one in 10,000 laws. I am the only one. Emperor Realm Intent Law, refined. Qing Lao's eyes were solemn as he muttered. Suddenly, a thin platinum luster bloomed on his body. It surrounded his body and resisted Xianyuan Wuba's increasing pressure. And this power also belonged to Qing Lao's law, the so-called Emperor Realm Intent he had comprehended. Refined. At this moment, as he blurted out, the thin luster circulating on his body gradually merged into Xianyuan Wuba's gravity law. It seemed to turn into billions of particles that merged with the gravity law. They permeated each other and then assimilated. Whoosh! An invisible force dispersed around Qing Lao. At this moment, the pressure of gravity he was under was completely refined and dissipated. And faintly, it seemed that Qing Lao's aura had inexplicably become stronger. Refining law, a powerful elder from the Sword sect walked out. His aura was far above Elder Meng's. He was obviously a true Emperor Realm Almighty. He looked at Duanmu Qinghui in surprise. Refining law was rare, and the effect seemed to be very domineering. It had actually refined Xianyuan Wuba's law. Incomparably wonderful. I have never seen such a law before. Yang Tai said with a trace of envy in his eyes. Looking at it this way, the refining law was the Emperor Realm intent that Duanmu Qinghui had comprehended. After releasing it, it could refine other people's Emperor Realm intent. It was very compatible with the profession of an alchemist. And since he could refine gravity, he could naturally refine the Sacred Hall's fire law. This was very powerful. In the future, when Duanmu Qinghui matured and completely comprehended the refining law, he would definitely be a terrifying person. At this moment, Master Tang's eyes were filled with anger, desire, and even hatred. All sorts of emotions were revealed without concealment. His expression was somewhat ferocious as he glared at Qing Lao. He really wished he could replace this person. Xianyuan Wuba was surprised. However, he still didn't place Qing Lao in his eyes. The law power he had released was very weak. He hadn't fully released his Emperor Realm intent. After all, he really couldn't kill Duanmu Qinghui here. He only wanted to teach him a lesson so that he wouldn't blindly come out and stand up for Qin Hao. But he didn't expect that not only did he not achieve the effect of teaching Duanmu Qinghui a lesson, but he also seemed to have unexpectedly helped Duanmu Qinghui. Many thanks. Qing Lao smiled faintly. In that instant of Emperor Realm intent collision, the law power that Xianyuan Wuba had released just happened to be within his tolerance range. He had used this opportunity to counterattack with his Emperor Realm intent, allowing him to gain a deeper understanding of the refining law. Thus, he was able to use it more skillfully. And this situation had undoubtedly pushed him one step closer to the true Emperor Realm. You're welcome, Xianyuan Wuba said coldly. Next time, you won't be so lucky. Ha ha ha. Hall Master Luo slapped his big bald head and laughed without restraint. How interesting. Xianyuan Wuing, you father and son wanted to embarrass the master of Dange. In the end, you came out to embarrass yourself. Xianyuan Wuba taught great elder Duanmu a lesson and helped him take another step towards the Emperor Realm. When will you help me too? Let me fall into the law of gravity. I really want that. In the Arhut Palace, from the Palace Masters and Palace Elders to the 9 Hall Masters, as well as the disciples, they all lived by refining their bodies. In order to refine their bodies, they dared to try anything dangerous. Using gravity to crush the body and bones was exactly the basic training method of the outer sect disciples. It could be said that in the southern region, who was the most effective against the Xianyuan family? The Arhut Palace was second to none. Their training method was completely masochistic, and the ultimate move of the Xianyuan family was the tonic that the disciples of the Arhut Palace dreamed of. There is even a rumor that one night, the Arhut Palace master could not find a way to train himself. He could no longer improve, so he ran to Nanao and found the current great emperor Nanao, who was Xianyuan Wuba's father, and asked him to use the most terrifying killer move, the 9-star dilly, to train himself. Great Emperor Nanao was so angry that he spat out blood. Their family's ultimate move was used to kill enemies. It was their pride, but in the eyes of the Arhut Palace master, it was a tool to train himself. After that, some people said that the Arhut Palace master was badly beaten that night. Half of his bones were crushed and his face was swollen. When he got home, even his son, Luo Yuliang, could not recognize him. As for Great Emperor Nanao, it was even more serious. He did not go out for a year. It was said that he slept for more than 5 months, and when he woke up, he recuperated for another 3 months. He was obviously exhausted. However, after that battle, Hall Master Luo was once again brimming with energy and vigor in the second month. Furthermore, in terms of cultivation, he had truly improved a lot. It gave him the misconception that his body had become a god. After that, he publicly advised his disciples that if they met anyone from the Xianyuan family in the future, as long as their realm was not too different, they must ask nicely. Even if they had to kneel down, they must ask for a beating. This incident became the laughingstock of the southern region. Of course, the Arhut Palace was not the one that was laughed at. Hearing Palace Master Iluo's mocking laughter, Xianyuan Wuba looked embarrassed for the first time. He gritted his teeth, but there was nothing he could do. His face was full of grievances. He knew very well that even if he used all his strength and used the law of gravity, it would not have much effect on Palace Master Iluo. What worried him was that it might cause Palace Master Iluo to level up. This was the reason why the Xianyuan family was most afraid of the Arhut Palace. Therefore, they would never attack anyone from the Arhut Palace. Enough. Since it is not convenient for my father to show up, I will take his place and see what Pavilion Master Qin can do. If he wins, the Xianyuan family will agree to his request and give him a chance. Xianyuan Feng could not tolerate these thick-skinned barbarians from the Arhut Palace. The southern region was beautiful. How could such a group of perverts be born? They used the Xianyuan family's powerful cultivation method to stimulate their own improvement. A killing move that was fatal to others was the best tonic for the disciples of the Arhut Palace. It was too disgusting. Xianyuan Feng stood up. His words successfully diverted everyone's attention. He no longer made the disciples of the sword faction and the disciples of the sacred halls show strange expressions that annoyed them. He wanted to challenge Qin Hao and defeat the master of Dangu to win back the dignity of the Xianyuan family. Qin Hao, 21 years old, early stage level 3 Yuan Venerate, possesses a source spirit. Qin Hao also saluted. Many of the people present shook their heads. The gap between them was really too great. There is already a huge gap between a level 3 Yuan Venerate and a level 8 Yuan Venerate. However, Xianyuan Feng also possessed a source spirit. If he unleashed his full power, he would most likely be able to contend with a second-level monarch. Fortunately, the Shiliang Pavilion Master also possessed a source spirit. Hopefully, his source spirit would be a little stronger. Otherwise, this battle would be lackluster. If he was defeated by Xianyuan Feng in one move, he would have failed to live up to the expectations of these powerhouses. Not only were the elders shaking their heads, but even many of the disciples were looking at him with disdain. The Shiliang Pavilion Master was really too weak. Within the 3 sovereigns and 4 sects, most of the disciples of the first-rate sect were much stronger than Qin Hao. Shiliang was indeed the worst of the 4 regions. However, Xiaogua, Nibbling Tube, and the others were laughing. A mere level 8 Yuan Venerate actually dared to challenge the little ancestor? It seemed like this battle wasn't anything special. Even if this genius of the Xianyuan family possessed a source spirit, it would still be very difficult for him to force Qin how to use his full power. Once the little ancestor's 3 spiritual souls were unleashed, he would be able to surpass 1.5 heavenly cycles in order to attack his opponent. The might of this attack was no joke. In the southern region, where many outstanding people lived, few people would be able to contend against him. Xiaogua and the others weren't the only ones laughing. Even Ning Chaofan, who was in the distance, was laughing. He actually sat down, grabbed the melon seeds on his seat, and started munching on them. Then he crossed his legs and said, "The Xianyuan family doesn't know what's good for them. During the battle, you are not allowed to rely on any magic tools, weapons, or defensive tools other than your soul. Both sides will stop when necessary. If either side loses the ability to fight or admits defeat, the battle will be over. More importantly, outsiders are not allowed to interfere. Otherwise, you will bear the consequences." Let's begin. Since they were on the auction stage, the person presiding over the rules was the auctioneer, Li Beitong. No one had any objections to this. The last rule that Li Beitong had set was obviously targeted at Xianyuan Wuba. If the emperor-level Xianyuan Wuba suddenly interfered, it would be very disadvantageous for Qin Hao. Now that this rule had been set, it would be difficult for Xianyuan Wuba to act. Among the powerhouses present, which one of them wasn't at the peak of the Monarch stage, half-step to the Yuan Emperor stage, or even the real Emperor level? However, Tang Xingqian and Changhe Lo stood out. Did they really want to correct the name of the Southern Region warriors? Qin Hao did not think that they were so noble that they could say it directly if they did not like him. All right, Little Pavilion Master Qin has spoken. Go! Senior Meng stepped back. Since Qin Hao had agreed, he naturally could not stop him. Moreover, Xianyuan Wuba looked at Senior Meng with an extremely dissatisfied gaze. Thank you, Senior. I will definitely make the Southern region famous. The two of them cupped their hands and landed on the arena. They stood beside Xianyuan Feng in a triangular formation and stared at Qin Hao covetously. Another one who doesn't know the difference between life and death. Tang Xingqian didn't learn his alchemy skills well. Old Tang Dou's ability to embarrass himself. But he did learn some skills. Ning Chaofan laughed and threw away the melon seeds in his hand. Xiaogua and Kei revealed strange expressions. The southern region had given their big brother a chance to show off in today's battle. It was too good. Even I can't help but want to fight. Brother Ruhan, Sister Wanqin, Little Nine, Xing Sword Prince, and Big Brother Qin are all here. That's great. Xiaogua's body was faintly filled with battle aura. He really wanted to have a big fight with the southern region. Huh? Xianyuan Wuji, who had been silent, spat out a teasing smile. Even he could not help it. These arrogant fellows from the southern region really thought that the Emperor Wu of the northern region was a pushover? To be able to stand out among hundreds of thousands of younger warriors, one could imagine how terrifying his strength was. However, this group of people actually thought that Qin Hao was a little sheep and wanted to step on him. What are you laughing at? Xianyuan Wuing heard and turned to look at Xianyuan Wuji. Qin Hao will be killed by Feng. Wuji, you can take your revenge. Later, try to watch carefully. Feng will show the best side of the Xianyuan family's soul source. That is what you need to learn. Yes, second uncle. Wuji will definitely follow Brother Feng's example. Xianyuan Wuji nodded. However, he felt very uncomfortable. In fact, Xianyuan Wuing and Xianyuan Wuba had treated their generation well. However, Xianyuan Feng's performance would probably disappoint his second uncle. Because Qin Hao was simply a monster an existence that could not be defeated. At this moment, Xianyuan Feng on the stage was very dissatisfied. He coldly glanced at Changhe Lo and Tang Xingchen. They dared to come up and steal his thunder. However, he did not say anything. After all, the Herbal Medicine Hall and the Spiritual Bee sect were also members of the Southern region. They were fighting for the Southern region. In fact, it's useless whether you two come up or not. Because I'm here, you won't have a chance to fight. Xianyuan Feng sneered at the two of them. Brother Feng is right. Tang Xingchen thought that even if the formula was in his hands, he would still be able to refine an epic-making immortal pill. But now it was different. Qin Hao's mind power was ridiculously strong. In terms of starting as a pill master, he had already left Tang Xingchen in the dust. Based on the difference in their mind's power, it was destined that their future achievements would only be greater and greater. In this lifetime, they would probably not be able to surpass Qin Hao. Furnace 9 changes. Tang Xingchen roared. Under the control of his mind power, the sea of fire, which had been unable to fall, retreated to the sky like a tide. But immediately after, it compressed together and formed 9 furnaces that spat out flames. Of course, these 9 furnaces were not real. They were the condensation of fire spells. In terms of power, they could not be mentioned in the same breath as the sea of fire. Then, Tang Xingchen's arm slashed down. The 9 furnaces whistled and smashed towards Qin Hao's head one after another. Seeing this scene, the expressions of many experts changed slightly. Tang Xingchen of the Herbal Medicine Hall was indeed not weak. Just based on the attacking momentum of the 9 furnaces, this person could be ranked among the top geniuses in the southern region. At the same time, many people were also worried. Among them, Elder Meng was so anxious that he secretly sent a look to Dan Ji's monster trainer, asking him to be prepared for rescue. Although Li Beitong had set the rule that outsiders were not allowed to interfere in the battle. But when it came to that moment, no one would ignore the death of their own genius. Master Tang was like this. Elder Wan of the Spiritual Beast sect was like this. Perhaps Xianyuan Wuba was like this as well. Therefore, Dan Ji's side had no qualms about intervening. As for Elder Meng himself, it was inconvenient for him. After all, he was from a sword sect, not Dan Ji's elder. He just could not bear to see an alchemy genius of a generation die in this arena. However, the monster trainer did not seem to have seen Elder Meng's hint. He watched the 9 furnaces crazily smash down, not moving at all. That made Mr. Meng very unhappy. Were all the people of the Dantian Pavilion so arrogant? Were they all so arrogant? At this moment, a series of explosions exploded in the arena. Elder Meng's heart trembled. He immediately turned his head to look. It would be a pity to let Qin Hao die here. As soon as he turned his head, Elder Meng was shocked. The 9 furnaces fell one after another. This time, Qin Hao's mind energy did not succeed in blocking them. They were penetrated one after another and hit on Qin Hao's body. Under this crazy attack, the arena shook violently. However, just as everyone felt pity for this and thought that Qin Hao had met with misfortune, the flames on the arena dissipated.